September 25th, 2023. Welcome. Notice is hereby given that the City Council and the Economic Development Corporation of the City of Lamarque, Texas will conduct a special joint meeting September 25th, 2023, beginning at 1 p.m. Council chambers at 1109B Bayou Road, Lamarque, Texas, in accordance with section 551.127B of the Texas Local Government Code. The presiding officer and the quorum of the Lamarque City Council intend to be and will physically be present at 1109B Bayou Road, Lamarque, Texas. This location will be open to the public and the meeting will be broadcast at this location on Channel 16 and via YouTube. The council and the board of directors will meet for the purpose of considering the following agenda. The meeting has been called to order when we reached a quorum. And now we're at roll call. Certainly we would ask Kiara to give us a roll call. And Kiara, would you please give a roll call for the council as well as the Economic Development Corporation?
Yes, sir. Council District A.
Present.
Council District B.
Yes, present.
Council District C is not with us. Council District D
Present.
and Mayor.
Present.
All right, we're gonna go through the EDC. Chairman Smith. Secretary Lane, it looks like is not with us at the time, at the moment. Board Member Osteen,
Here.
Board Member Steens,
Here.
and Board Member Hawking looks like is not with us at this time either.
Thank you, Kiara. Let the record reflect that we have Mr. Alex Getty representing the Economic Development Corporation, as well as Mr. Cesar Garcia representing the City of Lamarque as manager, as well as members of both of their staffs. And so we'll move forward now to item 3, new business. Items presented to council and board for discussion and possible action. And so we will turn this over to Mr. Garcia.
Have access to the microphone. Obviously, we're going to kind of tag team this back and forth. As was brought to us by several discussions, whether it be directly from council or at EDC meetings or at the EDC retreat. One of the discussion items that we mentioned was establishing clear mission, vision, and goals. And I want to also make mention that we're going to touch a little bit more in depth as to how that relates to the Vision 2050 plan down further below, but just establishing ourselves as to what we want and what we have written down as our mission, vision, and goals. Alex, do you want to chime in there?
Sure. I mean, our mission, I'll just read our mission statement, and this was revised June 20th, 2013. The Marque Economic Development Corporation mission. The primary goal of the Lamarque Economic Development Corporation is to assist in the development of a strong, diversified economy for the city of Lamarque. This can be accomplished with a multifaceted approach that consists of efforts that help to promote business retention, business expansion, and business recruitment. Having said that, I mean, our goal at the Economic Development Corporation is to align with council's vision. You know, what is the mission and vision of council? What are the things that council wants to try to achieve? And within our purview, how does the EDC play a role in that? And I think, as Mr. Garcia just mentioned, when you get down to 3.3, I think that's where the nuts and bolts kind of come in as far as helping to establish a vision. Hey, Mr. Lane, how are you, sir?
We could just take a moment on that end too. There was a previous strategic plan that was in place. Can you talk about that and how that was composed, Alex, and where you are? I know it's set to sunset 22, if I'm not mistaken. If you could discuss that.
Yeah, so we worked on that. It was 2015 to 2022. Previous city managers made annual reports on there as called for by the plan. When I brought it to council in, I think, March of 22 to kind of discuss a little bit, there was some discussion at that time about, you know, what's the final report. And so what I did on my end was the pieces that were related directly and under the purview of the EDC, I put together a report and turned that in a few days later. But I think, I don't know if administration, if you were able to find those reports that Ms. Butler gave. I know there was one at least year 1, maybe year 2 and year 3, but early on that was done. That really helped council prioritize the budget for those early years, 16, 17, 18. But at that time, Dr. Bix Rathburn was hired as the consultant to put that together. The EDC funded that. There were, I believe, 7 different stakeholder meetings, including in that there was a charrette, a planning charrette, as well as some public meetings. the ideas, getting a good mix of the community together to help formulate what they would like to see and what they would maybe not prefer to see. And so that's kind of the gist of it is making sure that you get the input from the community.
Let me interject something here now. I was at a council meeting one night when this was brought up. Our commission goes, y'all want to report from Sally. It's kind of chastised, but when I looked through that thing and read it, 90% of the things in there said responsibility with the city council. And what I'm saying is 90% of it didn't get done. So if we're gonna do one of these missions and go over stuff, the responsible party needs to take ownership of that. And not blame it on somebody else. That's what I want to say, fellas and ladies. Because I got really irritated when I heard what went on that night. Before we ever got on the EDC, but I don't even know if y'all even read this thing. Some of y'all might have had opportunity to see the thing, but about 90% of it says on there. Yeah, each thing that each item that had come up said responsible party. It said city council and then say EDC. So if we're going to do this, we need to take ownership of what our responsibilities are on that report. Okay.
So let me ask a question, because people don't do what they don't know. So is that something that was given to us in 21? I know I've been here since June 21.
Alex can probably answer that.
Is
I
that-
don't
I
know.
went around either.
It's on the website, number one, it's on the city website, but typically when we do an orientation at the EDC, when there's a new council person who's elected or a new board member who comes on, that is part of the standard things that have been given since its creation. Because it's a big picture item about here's what community wanted at that time, and here are some of the main priorities that were given at that time. So
I think you
yes.
did. I'm just trying to see, because I know we had an orientation. You and I did.
right.
As far as the, but I don't know, I think you had said it was, that's when Colleen was here. I think you said it was from, that we need to do it again. So it was, I think it went up to 22 or 21, something like that, but we were gonna do it again. It's the old one.
Yeah, it was 2015 to 2022, but yeah, those are living, breathing documents. They're not a set it and forget it. They are, the idea is to review those annually to see how did you do on meeting certain specific goals.
Right.
And then you can tweak them and work them, and you keep it renewed by
Right.
doing that. And I think, again, those early years, there were reports made to council. I don't know where those are. I didn't, not that I recall received a copy. Those were more information put to council.
So good, this is a way for us to kind of recap it, go back. I'm very familiar with strategic plan. We have them every, teachers have them before that, and we had them at GHA as well. So my concern is, what is it now? What, I guess we just kind of redefine.
Yes,
That's
ma'am,
all.
exactly. And that's where number 3, I think, is critical. Of course, the EDC board did approve $40,000 in May to help buy a new strategic plan. And so hopefully we can get that, because those things take several months to put together. And so you're probably looking 3 to 6 months to do that. And so when you look at the timeline now, the goal would be to have that ready for the next budget cycle for sure. Fiscal year 25 budget cycle. That way it'll help council and the EDC prioritize the money. Where is it we want to spend the money?
Let's be honest, when I got here, we were talking about the railroad issue. That took up a whole, I'm trying to figure that thing out, because the railroad, you remember? Yeah, that we can say, so that, I'm just being honest. That was like the first year, trying to understand why I stepped out of that.
When we do this, we need to make sure that the goals are achievable and we can afford them. And I look through that report again. No way was it achievable, but we couldn't afford it. So, you set goals you can achieve.
I'm like COVID was in it too, in the midst of it, think about the dates and during that time.
When it comes to that, Mr. Osteen, and you mentioned goals and so forth, so your last plan being done in 2013, and not just EDCs, but also this new strategic plan, the closing of the previous one, and then the launch of a new one, which will be the Vision 2050 plan. Are there any specific, to your point, measurable goals that you see from EDC's perspective? And I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, Kara, I guess we're able to jump around this agenda if we need to. It's not set in stone if we need to go back and forth, correct? I want to make sure everybody's okay with that. Because in the midst of that, one of the things that we launched recently, everybody should have gotten, if you don't have a copy, I have more than enough for us to share here in your homes. Where you can take one and pass it along. The four major pillars, maybe help me out there if you don't mind. If the four major pillars that we have for the direction where, for the most part, we see the city going, and again, these are subject to change. You guys tell us this is what we need the feedback for, is where we are on the four areas, right, in the city of possible growth.
Let me go back, because my mind is going a little bit.
Sure.
So for the strategic plan, and that's the plan that we see created, right?
Not necessarily. We, similar to this time, we were asked by council to do a strategic plan.
Okay, so strategic plan is what it's.
It really, it
Okay,
can,
okay, 'cause I'm trying to send protocol, because we can't act on anything until it's brought to us, correct? Right.
Yes, that's correct. And I think to Alex's point, it seems like some of those things maybe, and even to Mr. Osteen's point, maybe they weren't brought forward due to different reasons. Maybe the funding wasn't there. We weren't in the right scope, different factors, COVID. There's a lot of things that may have derailed it. And we can't speak for what happened. But I think to that point, to provide closure to the previous plan, I think the next step that we from the city side need to do is provide an updated report that says, look, here's where we are.
That's what I want to push back, I mean, what he said.
Right.
90%, I'm like, wait a minute.
Well,
I wasn't getting anything to vote.
well, I guess looking at it,
Have you seen a copy?
Yeah, if what you gave me, you really get our attention, it was right that June 20. But again, there was a lot of things, some of that has been done, a lot of that is downtown, a lot of that is manifesting now.
Did you go to the thick one?
Yeah, I think you did.
yes, and again, it's online too.
so I guess the first step, and then anybody correct me if I'm wrong if they see differently. The first step is going to be from both the city and EDC, but it looks like large part now from the city is to bring a closure to where we are. Right? Hey, it's now September 23, whenever we finish this, here's where we are. And here's what's been accomplished jointly, right? If it was a joint thing or whatever the case is, whoever responsibilities were, and that could lead to the spark or the juncture of where we're going to go from there. The question is then for us to devise from in here, and if we're going to use these four pillars as our way to kind of drive us forward, if it's going to be public safety, capital improvement / infrastructure, a sense of community and development, obviously EDC plays a role in the development portion more than anything else, probably, as well as the others, right? Because everything that we do works together. But if this is going to be our launching board for these four pillars, is there anything else that this group feels that we need to do or better define so that when we work together to build the Vision 2050 plan, that we're doing so together in lockstep? Because obviously we're going to get public input, we're going to get everybody involved. But before that, from the EDC's board, because there's obviously all the boards will play a role in here, right? Parks Board would play a role in community and so on and so forth, KLMBC and what have you. The question on the development side, what points do you think that we can drive forward for that? I think it's probably a question that we have a launching point for us moving forward.
I think it's important that we realize that for years, under Chairman Crowder's leadership, our Economic Development Corporation was driven to be a major player in the redevelopment of our residential areas, in particular in the eastern portions or the older, more traditional portions of the Marque. So they were fully invested in acquiring property, trying to bring those pieces of property together, so that they can in turn allow for those areas to be redeveloped. And that has happened to tremendous amounts of success. And so I think now as we contemplate pivot, it's necessary that we now focus on the areas of economic development that will service those heads that we managed to put in those bids, right? And so that looks like more of a concentrated effort on focusing on the 45 corridor, businesses that bring jobs, businesses that provide for, sales tax, and other taxes, because we know that the Texas legislature has said to us through law, through the adoption of law, that they believe that this state is a state that ought to be operated on taxation other than property. We're moving away from property tax. I wholeheartedly agree with that. So now we have to work with this corporation to find ways to move away from property tax. And again, that points to sales tax, that points to development of our commercial areas. And so for me, the mission has to focus on that as we move forward.
And the direct derivative of that, Mayor, comes from sales tax and or combination of sales tax and more property tax. Although we're moving away from it, the abundance of more reduces the actual burden. So any ideas and suggestions on that? We're all aware of 45 and the corridor that exists on 45 and the massive expansion. And I can't speak for everybody, but I know Alex is involved in all these pre-development meetings that happen weekly. The phone's ringing. These meetings are growing. They're definitely more prevalent. Any other suggestions on anything specific that we would like to have? I know several times we've had a discussion internally as to what is our identity going to be. And I brought a newspaper. This is the paper from last Wednesday, the 20th, but it talks about full STEM ahead as far as what TCISD is doing with their new robotics area. I had the pleasure from Leadership Mainland to go and look at TCISD's and Dickinson's CTE programs of some of the things that they have. I have to tell you from that perspective and the fact that our educational system, all of our ISDs are moving in that direction, including our mainland prep, which is now Ignite. All of them are moving in the direction of prioritizing on education, youth development, and some of these extracurriculars. The seed has been planted for us to be major players when it comes to the education format. COM is doing whatever they can on their end through CTE and job placement, whether it be the healthcare industry or some of the plant services. We're training the folks. The question is, will the employers be in Lamarque or near Lamarque where they can still stay? Because what's happening then, or what the end result that I've talked to all of them is, yeah, we're going to train these folks, but then they're going to move to different areas, which is great. It's great that we're training and that our folks are going to receive higher paying wages and so forth. But one of those facets in the conversation I had with Alex, one of the things that we thought that we'd bring to you guys possibly is our method of attack. If, for example, the plants, the ports, whoever's in our general vicinity, whoever it may be, if their main businesses or partners are someone like A&A, or help me out, Alex, what's the one that's across the street from you guys?
Kintech.
If those are the type of players, well, maybe, and I hate to be competitive, but finding out who all suppliers are for some of these folks and seeing if they want a satellite location here, right? And it goes back to, what is our identity going to be? Is it going to be bringing some of those folks in? Is it going to go the industry side? Is it going to be having specific conversations about certain parcels and what those interests are? But before we can fine tune what we're doing, it's important for us to have that identity. Mayor Pro Tem, we've talked at length about sustainability projects. I know that's something that's near and dear to you. Certain areas, I just want to kind of know what direction we're going to go in, so we know what to expect. Obviously, we hear it all the time. Folks want grocery stores. Folks want, they're coming once the rest of these homes are built and inhabited. We've got an influx of homes going up. Texas City has an influx. Hitchcock is a sleeping giant. I say that to you guys all the time. They probably have the most undeveloped residential land that's going to be around us. So our general corridor is taking those steps, right? But the balance has to be, is not only is we're going to educate our kids, we're going to make sure that we have a good system for folks to come in. Our crime rate is important. People want to live somewhere they're safe. Obviously, folks are moving here, right? Har has said that, the fact that we rank number 6, and it's not changing. If you take a ride by Ambrose and Sunset, see the number of houses going up, and trade winds, there's more and more of that coming. And we're the hub, and it's going to kind of circle around us. We've got the other side of Lago Mars about to get built. I forgot what's the number, Alex. Is it some crazy several thousand homes that are going on across the street from 45? So I think that is going to help us with the numbers of getting the HEBs and the Krogers and all these other, grocery stores here. It's going to take time, obviously, but the question and direction that we want to have, make sure that we're in lockstep, right?
Well, Caesar, in answer to that, we've been here a lot longer than anybody, but you know, we've been spread out for so long in residential so long. So you know, when you come to us or when people come to us, we're so spread out business wise all over the place. And I think to me, that's somewhat of a problem for us. I know once we get the freeway finished out here again, I think the west side is the way it's going to be even better. But like now 1765, and I know Kim has talked about the empty buildings, but where do you put these people? Where do we need to go with them? And I think that's what a lot of our problem is here, as far as business wise goes, because we're just so spread out. You go down Highway 3, 1765, Main Street, it's always been that, always. And that's just from my perspective,
Sure.
though, because it's just, you know, we thought we had HEB on the hook, but that went down by the wayside. So, but we just, you know, I think that's what our biggest problem is. We're so spread out.
One of the things I think is that it's important, we go to a lot of, I know Joe and I, and the mayor, we go to a lot of aerospace, have unlimited budget. Vanessa Watch, she was like, it's my soror, your soror, is director of that. And we talked to her intensely about, hey, we want Lamar to be a player in that game. We just, you know, we can't do it all either. We do our best, but we definitely have some insight, right? And that's why we encourage you all to join BayCap, and you did. So that's gonna open that science corridor to find out, because aerospace is where it's gonna be at because of everything that's coming to Texas. They say that in HDAC, and we're there also getting our nonprofits together for FEMA, because FEMA is another way when you have first responders to help build up your area. So when we say we spread out, I just think we need a new vision, right? I think we need to know what's coming. You got the Great Brook Lodge coming in Webster. You got new shifts. Carnival just added another shift in Galveston. You know, so tourism, you have to come through the market to get all of that. So the question becomes, you know, what do we do? Several teams that when we first got elected, you know, I talked to them. We had a safety summit to say, what can we do to change? Because the dope at your store is 39 neighborhood. Well, he got so upset because we met with him, because nobody had met with him. He sold it. So there's some conversations that we have to have. We gotta be assertive and aggressive. We just haven't been, even with Church's Chicken. I just talked to them, Leon Hell, and finally she said, oh, now it's not gonna be pizza. We're going back to chicken. I'm like, well, can you give us a date? Because right now it's been empty for 2 years. You know, I'm fine in college, but it's gotta be a combined effort. And I dog them, call, hey, what's going on? Why is it that we allow things to happen in the park that doesn't happen in the city? So my question is, what tools are they using that doesn't encourage empty buildings? You know, there are best practices out there. So we can complain and we can say, listen, we can say the fastest growing city in the Galveston County. So we've got to change the way we've done things because of growth, right? And so my thing is that we gotta find what those tools are, what does, and I'm friends with Nick Long, lovely deputy, UT grad, we talk often. Former kickers, I love football, and I'm asking Nick, why is it that you guys don't have vacant buildings like we do? You know, what's going on when we go to those dinners? I don't understand why they can't come to the dinners with us, the council meetings that we have, so we can have a full table.
Absolutely.
Those networking opportunities that you get to talk about, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I'm just saying, we have opportunities, you just gotta go get it. You can't wait till this fall.
Right, well, we know that.
We have, conversation. There's a lot of things that's going on and moving in the right direction.
Right.
One thing that I do love the fact that we're doing is talking to everybody about the chamber of commerce, even though they've been right now, and they've been here for a long time, word of mouth to get here. I know a person that was in the bind, and I took care of it last time. My business was getting ready to be under, and because of Lamar, you still standing. And those things, I believe they were moving the needle downtown in Marque. So everybody's is sitting on the utility seat waiting to see what's next and what's happening. The imaging, being on the television networks over and over again, like, man, I see the Marque, HDTV, just we're moving. I agree with that. One of the things too, and network, and I mentioned it the other day, I went to Kelly and I seen the owner there, and I said, see that you are purchasing a whole lot of land. What are you doing over there? Why not Marque? I'm open. So we'll start. So I passed the information on to Alex, and talked to Alex before. And it's just having those conversations, saying, hey, come here, what are you doing there? Instead of picking up a condo and Washington, people. So having those conversations with people just right off the bat. And knowing that we care. The business summit, because in the Marque, people from all over saying, okay, business, you hear business, you start thinking on the Marque, you start thinking brand. So we're out there, but yeah, as a team, as a whole, we do need to come on and say, okay, let's next. We're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, let's set a deadline, let's follow up. We talked about it this last meeting, here we are today. We made it happen and showed up. So, I see it, I see we move.
I'm just gonna mention just one thing. We have EDC board. We're going through a change ourselves. We changed our leadership now, and like you say, for a long time, we have been focused in one direction.
Yeah.
I wish you could have had people in our last 2 or 3 meetings. We've talking about a whole different thing, which is some of it's gonna be put on your desk pretty soon. It's gonna be put on your desk pretty soon. So we can't do it overnight.
Right.
Now we are, but we're going in a different direction. It's going to be just a little bit before you see it. Now, we can't ignore the fact that I-45 projects is going to affect us no matter how you think about it or what you think. It's going to impact how effective we are. But we're not that we're not looking forward. But you can't say aerospace or any other major player, hey, come visit with us when they can't begin to build until that's done. But we're not waiting though. We've got at least 3 major projects that I can think of that we didn't talk about in our last 3 meetings that are really I think this group is really going to be really proud of, and I think you're going to be proud of, because we can't make the final decision on one at least, but I think you'll know at least we're doing our homework. We're changed. We're not looking at the lots as they come available in the different communities. Now, that's not 100% of what we're doing. We're looking at some other things we're changing gears. And under our new leadership, I think it's going to be very obvious to you guys that we're not going in the same direction that we've gone in the past. Not saying what happened in the past is good or bad. That's not what I'm saying. But every last one of us to sit around this table this morning, pitched our ideas in from other input, from other industries and things like that. And just give us a chance to make that change for you. We're going to do it because we're listening. Don't believe me, we listen to what you guys think. We're doing that. But also while we're listening, we're making some things happen. Just watch and see that as some things come to your desk, they're going to be coming there because we on the ECD board we're changing gears right now.
So we're in the rebranding stage right now, because everybody went on what's going on with EDC. We rebranded a lot of things. One of the things we're going out of town in Vegas, we noticed 130,000 people in there, and we're talking to CEOs at the back, and we're looking, man, we need to stand out. Everybody's dropping their business card. You have a big old bowl of business cards, talking to people for a couple seconds, and then leave and say, you know what? We brought it back and said, we need to do something different. So next year, when we drop our information, how do we stand out? And so we've taken the time to create this card that's different than anybody else's out there, because we were noticing, and we only had that much time to talk to them. And so this card was created after we came back from Vegas for them to be able to scan, because they were just dropping it. This is bigger. The information on there is important. What's on this card? They can scan it and have the conversation with us. And out of any of the cards, is in there, all the cards look the same. This is different. We're proud to bring this next year. To them, they'll be able to scan it, connect all the information and talk to them about what's going on, it's just like that. And so, we just wanted to share today what we're doing. We're going to be creative. Getting out there, we changed over, so make sure that we're not just communicating with everybody in English, but also in Spanish. And so we can break it over to the Spanish team, when they're able to reach out to us, because we realize, look at our clientele, look at Marque, it was changing, she was going up and down. So we have to make sure that we're transparent to everybody. And so we noticed that. And so we made some changes with that. So we'll be able to communicate, not just to everyone in English, but also in Spanish. So we've taken the time to dig, to see what's going on in our community and see what we can be to meet those needs.
So when it comes to every building, what can we do? I know the mayor and I have talked about what incentives can we possibly do to get those buildings moving. And I haven't researched that, but if someone help find out what we have to do, what type of incentives to offer the owners of these empty buildings. I have talked to them, some of them very nice, but they see the older Marque, and the older Marque is, you tell them about this new emerging Marque, and they still see the older Marque. So what type of programming is there, a tax incentive that we can give to get? And let me just say, some of the issues that we're having is a lot of cities are having, because when the pandemic, people found other ways to do this at home. And so this is not a unique problem at all, but I guess we've got to find some ways to reuse it, I guess. But it's just sitting there in storage, particularly in district A. That's what I'm concerned. So, I don't know if anybody has that view.
Something that EDC has been working on, it's on your screens here. It's the properties for lease or for sale, either or, that they've worked on, that Kyle's been able to pull up. So one of the things we did is you talk about how can we help some other folks. Not eventually, and I don't know if they're all uploaded yet. I don't want to put pressure on you guys, but I know there's going to be all of the EDC land, city land, and also you're working with other folks who may just own the land about putting their information on it. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, the idea behind this is really going to take in, all of your commercial websites. They're able to pull from that, and that's what we're paying Moody to do. We can certainly send them our information for them to upload. They're still building it out. There's several that I know that aren't on there that I've sent to them, and so I follow up with them as recent as last Thursday. I got with Ron and said, hey, when will we finish building out? But it's a great tool. It's not, I don't love it yet. It's not complete yet. And so, but it is a good tool. It's a great idea.
But has it helped? Is it helping?
It can't hurt. I mean, it certainly can't hurt. It's any exposure. I don't know. I've seen a little bit of movement on the number of properties there, fluctuating between 27 and 29. And so we've seen a little bit of movement, but to your point, I want to just to pass this out. This is exactly what you're talking about because of the pandemic changing things. Let me just. This is something that I provided to the board in our last agenda packet. It talks about vacant office space, in the nation. And so it's an uphill climb. I think the bottom left corner there is a good summary. Amount of US office space expected to be obsolete by 2030, 300 million square feet. And so you're seeing all over the country, and Austin is noted here as well. You're seeing some challenges with this office space. What is it going to transition into? Is it going to be housing? What is it going to be? We certainly don't have the high rises here, but we have some vacant office space and vacant space in general. And so I just wanted to provide this just to let everyone know that it isn't unique. As you said, Councilwoman Yancey, it's not unique. This is the most recent Houston Business Journal. And there's about 30 pages. And this is, just so you know, this is the office leasing guide. There's about 30 pages, and these are 4 columns deep of office space that was available in our region. And so I just mentioned that just because it's, it isn't Southern Galveston County. It isn't just Lamarck. And so we do need to look for those creative ways of, how do we market it and what will it become? What will it be? If you're gonna have all this office space throughout the entire country, it's not gonna be office space anymore. What is it gonna be?
Well, that brings us to a crucial point. I think that in all municipalities' history, there was a time when a lot of our retail centers were in the streets, in the midst of neighborhoods, because that's how life was in those days.
Correct.
There's another style of life that has emerged where people tend to want to be in residential areas together, and they want their retail areas, but their commercial areas to be in different. And so that makes it more of a problem for some of these commercial areas that are in these neighborhood centers, because they will put there 20, 30, 40, even years ago. So what we would probably have to do is work with those property owners to see if we can reimagine those spaces. How can they be profitable to those owners? How could we then reimagine that to be maybe a small multifamily unit that would generate profits for these property owners that will put, again, more of a diversified style of housing in our community, as well as allow for more heads and beds. I think, again, that's a pivot. It's a hard pivot. It's a tough pivot for property owners who have commercial property, but it may be a necessary pivot. Because to your point, to Ms. Yancey's point, these properties have been vacant for quite some time. And the trend is that they will not somehow become non-vacant in the near or even the distant future. So I would say that would be a way for us to pivot if we can begin that conversation with some of those property owners. If that conversation is consistent with the trends, which I think that it probably is.
Mr. Mayor, I have two comments to make on that. Number one, just leaving AT&T, we had the same conversation. We're still having the same conversation. We've got property all over the country that was built, 30, 20, 30, 40 years ago, and it was built for commercial property. And a lot of our pandemic hit, we let a lot of people go home. Now we're making people come back to utilize it because we find we just can't sell it. We just can't sell it. You can imagine it, you can try it, you can think about it, but we just can't sell it. People nowadays that in Marque and in small communities, the people that we're talking about, they don't live in Marque. These people that own a lot of these buildings that we're talking about right now, I've talked to 3 of them about it. But when you talk to them, you don't talk to people in Marque. They're not my neighbors. They're not my church members. They don't pay, they pay the taxes and stuff, but they don't live. So they look at one thing. You know what that is that dollar sign. And they're looking at it. And I can give you 3 references right now today that we talked to some people to try to buy buildings of stone throw here. And the bottom line, they don't live here, and they got one thing on their mind, it's passed along to them, and I'm gonna make this amount of money on it. And so it's something that it's not something that we're gonna be able to fix overnight, but it's something that we are addressing and we're looking into. But I can assure you, major corporations like AT&T are making decisions on some of the same things that you're talking about right now. And it's not gonna be an easy decision. It's not gonna be an easy pivot, but I can assure you, this board, the EDC board that's sitting here before you, we're talking about these same things right now. And I'm just hoping and praying that our salvation, one of the things that's going to help us more than some other locations that have the same problem, is that we can't, you just gotta keep saying it. 45 years finished, and then people they're gonna come to us, they're gonna be begging. But now those people that are making those decisions again, they don't live here. And so we just can't, look on that list. And you look at how many people own those properties that still live here in the market. They're just not. They're down the road. They're passing, they're other places. So we're gonna address this, and I can assure you, we are gonna make it. But it's not gonna be, it's like that ocean liner. It's not gonna just turn overnight. But we're gonna make it, we're looking at, we're going in a different direction that we're going.
Question. So the expectation in areas. So in Carolyn, you cannot having your building sign broken, destroyed, you can't even hang up certain signs. And so with, if they're paying the taxes and they're in our community, maybe a certain ordinance or something, they understand that, hey, if you have a business, you need to maintain this effective this. Because I'm gonna use one business example, Gulf Coast Bill Bonds. They have their little setup going on everywhere. But what does their building look like? Nobody in it, but it's maintained, the yard is right, it's painted, and it looks like something. And I think that's one thing too, you're being business owned and trying to be next to somebody else, you want that business to look like something. And so when you pass through, if all those old business, you now do nothing with it, do something about it, you know, make it look like something. Set the expectation, yours, this needs to happen over here. And in that way, as a community, as a whole, when you look at it, you see change. You know what, I can put my business here, nothing may not be going on in that business, but we didn't allow it to sit there.
I don't know if this has been grandfathered, that's the problem,
Yeah.
so. Because a lot of those signs, because you can look at Leo, we all know Leo, but Leo sign is a hot mess.
Yeah.
And pretty much all the signs down with, from 1765 all the way down. By. So, and you're absolutely right, Tracy,
Because in my mind, I'm thinking, so if certain stuff we can't do, there's some things we can do. We may be able to sponsor a sign. We may be able to, hey, this person has been in our community for 30 years, you know?
Then, I mean, I was I know, I sat down and, come on, let's do this grant. And they still don't turn.
Yeah, it just, and it's upset. And you know, we have the people that's been around and they just don't know. So that may be something like, hey, we're reaching out to you, that, hey, let me help you do this.
Or maybe have a class.
Yeah.
A lot of them are afraid
Yes.
of the grants that they apply for the grants
Mhm.
because they don't have the financials that would back us to give them the money. That's a lot of the problem. When I'm speaking as a banker now, and it's good to talk to these people and try to point them in the right direction, which I think Alex has done that through the chamber because of their small business
Right.
lady that they have over there. And I know she's been to several of our meetings, but it's just for years, you know, this town has just been a little town. And now, like you say, you know, we got people building like crazy over here. And
So how can we bridge that barrier, you know, to her point, with the ordinances, that's something we.
yes, that'll have to come from you guys. You know, we'll have to get direction from y'all on what to do, because if we want to do something, we're not gonna do it without y'all. That's just the way it's been, because I've been on this board and I've been on a long time. We won't do anything without getting y'all approval first.
So looking at the collaborative opportunities, 3-6, and I think this is a great example of that. You know, there's a combination of maybe the ordinance need to be reviewed or create an ordinance. And the flip side, you know, if the board would like to, we can create a new grant program for signage to try to help ramp that up. So we're trying to, here's the rules, but here's how to get back into compliance. Here's some help. And so it could be a good push and a good win.
I know you had brought up something about some type of program for signing, for signs, I think for 45.
Oh, we were talking about the billboard.
Billboards.
Right.
But anytime for your building, you know, you got Leo to somebody, you know, just a new sign from the mark, and you know, you've been here this long, to feel good, it would make me want to take my building. I got a new sign up, I want to do something with my building now. And then another thing too, that, you know, coming up from the mark, I believe that we were the first ones that were doing that internship. That was huge. We were the first ones. And so keep that going, because the internship saying, hey, I came out through here, I'm dedicated because I got to intern more at all levels, council levels, you know, also, you know, fire department, you know, EDC, the city, and just recognize the things that's going on. All of those things, when they see that going on in the community, they want to know, how can I be part of that? I've seen that. I'm seeing it. The other ready to do this again next year, we'll be ready. So all of those things are in the right direction. We just need to keep going and do those things that was working. That was working.
So I guess it's important for us to know what policies that we need to create. I know you had your hand up about, when she said ordinance, about what we can do.
Yeah, I made my comment, just
Oh,
saying,
yeah.
the collaborative side, we could, as the EDC, if, if the board would like to, I can
Do that.
write a new grant, another fresh grant that would help. And then there would probably be some collaboration back and
Sure.
forth on how that would ultimately work. But that would be the idea, is how do we springboard an effort to create some momentum?
The only thing I would like to add about the empty buildings. I think that you guys as a council, if you know what type of businesses you want to see in the locations that you have, that we have over here on 1765 and Highway 3, then that would give us some way to touch base with people and see if we can get them to come here.
That's actually great. Go ahead. I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
that's a
Councilman.
good start for this conversation. Someone, 'cause I know we're thinking about the Lamarck thing, right? In downtown, that Lamarck and the French Renaissance thing, pull off of that. Kathleen had a great idea about railroad district down Howard, with possibly other opportunities that Howard Creek, right? That area, that whole issue about the high area. And there's a lot of people selling now. They weren't selling before. They're selling. Y'all know I go ask, and I've been here a long time. I've been out here and I know what they are. So, and because I think you have to do that, because there's so many people caught up in the old market, they can't see the new. So you have to make those relationships and get on the CAD and find out who's this, who's that, and kind of let them know. But I know like with Sims is an institution. They've been in Galveston County over 45 years, and we were blessed for them to move to Lamarck. But they have flooding, that whole area floods, and you can't, and they say, Nancy, we want to drive through, but we don't know what to do. So I gave them Alex number, but they don't follow up. We've been going back and forth.
We've been trying to do a shine on them for a while.
Yeah, I know, I know. So it's that kind of, I'm like, it's still flooding, so you have to be there a certain time, and then people are asking, Nancy, isn't this your district? I said, no, my district ain't run over there. But I know, but it floods, even when it's not really raining, and I'm like, why can't we build a driveway? Why can't we, one thing I can say to Alex credit, when I came to Alex, when I was running for office, and I talked to Miss Evelyn, I said, Miss Evelyn, Miss Evelyn is around the corner from my mother-in-law. She's deceased now. And Miss Evelyn had been leasing for 30 years. 30 years. And I said, Alex, can we find a building for her? This woman had leased 30 years. And within 3 months, she found a building for her?
We sent several, but she obviously liked the one she
She
purchased.
was like ecstatic. She said, nobody had even had said anything to her. I said, you should not be leaving one. That's what I'm talking about. As far as those people that have been very loyal to us, to the city, offer them some type of incentives to come and get some of these empty buildings. The issue that we're having in District 8 right now, with 2 families, has to do with the other family that won't go get the garage. He just won't go, he's trying to do work in his neighborhood. And all he really needs, the people, they don't want him doing work in the neighborhood, which, don't do the work. But he doesn't have the skill set, though,
Yeah, that's
to
what
know what to do to get the garage. But if we can say, hey, we have a business incubator with the EDC. And you can come to this business incubator, finish the program, we will help to find you a garage. That's being served. That's solving problems, because we say all day, I'm a teacher, but teacher is all about that, am I right? Data analysis and solving problems. And we can say all day long other cities, but we have the power and the tools here in our communities. So let's see what we can do with it, and we can study best practices from other cities. Because we're only here 3 years, but we have to run again. So you might get somebody that comes in and doesn't do anything and wants you to, sit while other people compete against us. I came up with a tagline, which they're using now. At the business luncheon, the dinner that we have, I said, Galveston County will be the place where millionaires come to play and families come to stay. That came out of the market. And that's from me being there, hearing what the other cities are doing. I just want to compete. That's all I'm saying. I just want to compete. So what can we create? And thank you to that. what can we create to bridge the gap? I think this is what the whole meeting is about.
I believe we need to utilize our resources. We have a lot. Everything that they need, that we need to make a big deal about it. And we're getting ready to have something that help you with your business and being long office on at the library on this day. And when they continue to see that this is happening, something that, you know, that, hey, we're doing this for you, we're showing you, hey, sign up, we're doing this, we're doing signage, you know, go in and make sure that, you know, that we get the information out. But
Well, even the program you did, I had 3 people calling from the program you did on your own. About when you talked about the EDC and what things were doing, and they called to say, Tracy told me about this, that, and I said, yes, you got totally right. So those types of things,
they want to know, we just gotta keep going. You do it one time, when's the next one? You can't make that, you just keep going. The EDC Facebook that we didn't have, now it's out there. Some people are following it. One of the big things that's going on is on I-45 now, that we're out there, putting the information out there. So we just keep going. Let's just come up with what we're gonna have, what's the next step, are we doing signs? You know, that's gonna be next, we're doing an ordinance, and then follow up one day, we're gonna have to meet again to see where we're at, and reach out to these people. You know, what happened here, what worked, what didn't work, and then just keep the ball going. So we just need to put it on paper now, and then come back and follow up, and make it happen.
Let me say this, because we want to be on task here, we want to make sure that we have a resounding feeling of what our mission should be. Let's make no mistake about it, the council has spoken, and when we spoke during the budgetary process, we're speaking, we have said very firmly that we believe that the Marque has to continue to grow, that we need to move toward a more sustainable way to operate fiscally. And this council has said through action that way is that we want to be a sales tax driven governmental entity. We want sales tax. We want economic development to be the driver of our operational budget. That's clear. So I want to make sure that we understand what the mission. So as you return back to your workplace over at EDC, if you contemplate what that means for you, it means that we would love for you all to work on bringing businesses to our city. Again, preparation for the I-45 corridor business expansion. Let's look at Highway 3. That's an entirely different animal altogether. Mr. Ross is spearheading that for us. We get Highway 3 economic development zone and a plan for it. We just said, and it doesn't matter how much we want it to be so. We just said that there are areas in every city where they are unable to provide for their commercial properties, provide tenants, provide business and services, goods and services. We know that's happening all over the country. One of the reasons it's happening in the Marque, we just said that the Marque is antiquated, maybe in the way that we are designed. We need to pivot. But one of the other things that causes us to have problems, especially in some of the more under served areas of our community, is the idea that even if there were businesses in those areas, the people that live in those areas are unable to sustain themselves physically. That's an issue. Many of our residents are seniors, and they live on fixed income. Others are renters, and they are trying to reestablish their lives. And until we are able to provide sustainable jobs to move folks from poverty into the middle class, we will continue to struggle in the eastern portions of our city as it relates to economic development and the provision of goods and services. Until we pivot, again, we have to pivot. We have to be self-sector. These commercial centers, these small commercial areas, we need to begin engaging those owners. We need to be friends with them. You haven't filled those vacant structures in years. Does not look like, according to the national forecast, even the regional and local forecast, doesn't look like you're going to be able to fill those places and spaces anytime soon. Have you considered, and we need to have the opportunity, the alternative for them to consider, because at the end of the day, as it's been said amongst all of us, folks that own business and own property, commercial property, have one main goal in mind. That's to profit, right? So we have to help them reimagine what profit would look like for them. So again, I want to hammer down, we want to be a sales tax driven entity. Along that line, I have a question. Alex, you may or may not know this, and I know we've asked it several times. How much 45 frontage does a city like Webster have? Yeah. I know I've asked you this probably 10, 15 times over the years.
I don't know about Webster. I know Dickinson has about 1 mile of frontage. Webster, I could find out and just take a few minutes to measure it on the CAD map, but I don't know.
So for me, as I close these comments, for me, I just shared what I believe. The vision would be something akin to what's happening in Webster. Again, that is a different demographic. They are folks that I'm sure make per capita, that of course, they make more than folks in Lamar. But the idea is that their economic centers drive the operation of their budget in a large way. And so we want to move forward that even if we don't reach that. So I'll stop there.
No.
So I want to say on this side of it. Are underutilized right now, so we can give an incentive to Mr. Goble in the very first firehouse that he turned into a practice place. Hey, we turn this into an antique store. Put your 1917 model out front. Let's talk about driving business in here at the old firehouse game shop. And stuff like that. And we look into a historic the first house that was ever in the water behind, and we people know there are things here that are we're not just the little town. There are historic events that happen, things that we've done. There are buildings that are important to our city. Let's use those to our advantage. Let's make it music. Let's not recreate something, but let's be something instead of just a place where everybody's riding straight through. The more we can get somebody to stop for 5 seconds, want to stay a little bit longer. So I found out that Mr. Storm owns the first movie theater, our only movie theater in Marque. And I would love to turn that into a buttermilk museum. It is for society, and let's put it out there. It's right next to the train track, clean it all out, put a little dining car in the back of the property. That way you can have a diner attached to it, you can actually sit and eat and learn the history of buttermilk junction. I mean, that's the direction, some of the direction we need to go.
Okay, let me interject something here before we get too off base here, Councilor Austin. We got, there's only so much we can do legally. Initially, I know they made a few little changes. We're an A, and that's industrial and manufacturing. And I brought it up several times at the EDC meeting about the gray area where they spend money, and I'll continue to bring it up.
So our suggestion that we become an A and a B.
I don't think if you take voter approval, it'll be a B. We want to do all we can to help the city. That's what we're about. And I'm not going to jail for it.
Everybody wants to go.
Okay, did y'all too? So we got legal issues here. If we got it, we all want to do something, but we gotta tread lightly. A museum, I think that's way off base or the EDC groups. That's not industrial, and that's not manufacturing. But like Councilman Lane or Trustee Lane said, we're going in a new direction, and which we think to be good for the city. But we're not going to get in trouble, and we're going to make decisions y'all probably not going to like on some stuff. But that's what y'all wanted us for.
So let me say this, because these are teachable moments, right?
Mhm.
What do you think an A is You tell me, what is, because everyone has different, you know, I'm a reader and I research. And I have network that's, they call me the Mouth of the South Network. I ask questions, you know that. And I'm noticing from older people, older council people, that there's a different interpretation of how it's being utilized. So you tell me what is because we're going to get on the two. And those are the questions that we're gonna be asking about the eight, because they're different. It's starting to look kind of mushy. So you tell me.
Well, the TML development handbook, it's 246 pages, right? So sprinkled in there, you talk about type A and type B, and there's several different real differences.
Right.
But one of the things we try to do is ties to primary jobs. That's part of the mission, is to create jobs for a type A. And so I like to say that we're good at things that are 6 inches tall and shorter. And what I mean by that is infrastructure for a business to come in. That's what we did when we worked with Sam's Club with that 380 agreement. There was not a dollar that went directly to Bentonville. We helped them build a street that helped the developer bring them to town. And so those are the kind of things that we can do. But be glad to. Well, there's several different differences. The way they operate is a little bit different. You've got to have 7 board members, can't have 6, can't have 8. It's by statute. It tells you how many they've got to live in the city that they represent. There are waiting periods. When an EDC board makes a move and it goes to council, I think it's 60 days. Since I've never been involved in a type B, it would be best to refer to the 246 pager for a lot of details. But those are some of the things that you see that are a little bit different.
Because it's an issue on the state right now. And the reason I've been, you and I are talking about it, the A versus B, even to the point that Dickinson now has an economic district, right, which is totally different. And they can do things totally different. And since we're talking about reimagining, if we're talking about hard pivoting, let's talk about that, because if we're using an older tool, maybe the tool is out there. That's all I'm saying.
The B might do kind of what y'all want.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, from what I've read, that the B might
Right.
be able to do that.
And so, and because of the warrant pains that we're having, because when you say, I don't want to go to jail, I'm like, I don't want to go to jail either. So, but at the same time, since we are growing, do we need to look at that?
Here's what some communities have done. They'll keep their type A, but then they'll take type B projects, specific type B projects to the community for vote.
It has to be voted by.
So more of your community development piece, it could be to help support the parks. It could be, but it has to go to the voters. You can keep your type A with this specific thing. We want like a B. If the voters say yes, then you can do
Would
it.
you then, so that we can finish that thought for those at home and all of us that are listening. If the voters approve it, would those funds still come from sales tax?
Yes, that's my
I
understanding.
just want to make sure everybody was on track.
So yeah, there would be some specifics about what's allocated each year and how it's done, and it's done by 8 cents or whatever. So we would have to navigate that, but there is a process for that.
But keep in mind, everything that you come up with for B has to be voted on by the community, and what kind of mess that can get into.
That's that aspect of it, unless, and that's correct me if I'm wrong, there's the individual project voting to have the segue to B, but there's also a separation, having a 4A and a 4B with whatever separation that is. Correct me if I'm wrong, that's what Galveston does, right? No, okay, correct. Sorry. not to put you-
I guess the first, to follow up on what Mr. Getty said and former council member Osteen, the funding mechanism is a portion of your sales tax. Lamarck is at, as is every city that I'm aware of in the county, 8.25. That you allocate that quarter, I believe. If the city wants to pursue a type B, yes, you need an election. The city is free to do any number. The city is free to be creative with that election. The city could take all of the type A. I believe it's the 0.25
We're at half cent.
half cent. The half cent could take it all, convert it to type B. The city could take a quarter, convert that to type B and leave the quarter as type A. The city council and then the voters have discretion there. As far as the specific projects, yes, in the ballot proposition, following up with what Galveston does, they do that. What Galveston has done when it went to the voters is pots of money, 4 pots, for the type B. When the ballot proposition was put to them, it said, do you want a type B? And then a subsequent, and these will be the silos, where that money will go. And it's split up 0.125. Sorry, math is not, I'm not great at math is not what y'all hire me for. 0.125 goes to each of those 4 silos. Lamarck and the city council, that is something that as part of, if a type B was chosen, Lamar or the city council could choose to put that question to the voters as well. Not only do you voters want a type B, but then do you want it allocated this way? Or among this thing, and the council has a broad discretion under the local government code to do that. So does that answer the question?
It doesn't. If I could just piggyback on that, as EDC is aware, council's under constant question for more resources, more infrastructure. That's not necessarily EDC. To your point, Mr. Olstein, that EDC can't really assist with. This would be a mechanism if council wanted to do something, and the proportions and separation that could be. But again, to do that, a 4A and a 4B can coexist. That is for this to kind of put together, and then once it's put together or categorized, then put that out to vote, and then that you move from like in that direction.
Keep in mind, 4B, 4A and 4B, we'll be taking about 1.2 million a year in sales tax.
What do we take in? We budget 1.4, but we're probably gonna be in that 1.7.
So, you know, there's so much in the pot. And you don't want to hurt you don't want to hurt your 4A.
Absolutely, and that's why the board gets to
Because, you know,
decide that.
Bring a big business, you're talking about big money to give them, help them get into it.
Talked about Great Wolf, and that's an example of that. I think that was about 20 million plus a $6 to $10 million tax abatement. So up to $30 million is what it took to bring the business.
And again, the argument then is that for 4B is to have more flexibility. But again, when you're dealing with the tremendous opportunities we have on the 45 corridor, and when you couple that with the need for us to have jobs, real jobs, that will pay real salaries, that will take care of real families, we have to be careful when we start even discussing quarter, because to former Councilman Osteen's point, it may detract from, take away from the amount of resource that you can provide for some of your larger employers that would be game changers. So that's a delicate balance, I think, that we would have to. But even before we get there, we still have to decide who we are as a city, and what we are as a city. And that's the vision that has to be had before we can even decide 4A, 4B, and all of those things. Steve, I know you want to.
And that's kind of the segue, Mayor. Thank you. We talked in general when we first met on this topic, seems like forever ago, that we want Lamarque, and I'm gonna paraphrase, right? We want Lamarque to be the best place to live, work, and play, right? And I think we talked about that in the EDC retreat as well. Well, to break those categories down, there's crime, community, infrastructure, and cost of living. Those are things that normally drive what makes it a great place to live. Work is one of the things that we're doing, is we're getting the educational base to get folks to have jobs. We just need to get the jobs here if it's going to be here local. Folks are moving from other areas to come live in Lamarque. That's happening, right? It's obvious, right, what's going on. And then to play goes back to the categories that we talked about. I was able to attend last week's HGAC EDC meeting that took place in Angleton. And actually, I brought this to kind of, it has my chicken scratch on it, so I apologize. But I want to go over some of my notes from that meeting, some of the research that they shared, because there is a possibility, and they asked some pressing questions that I did not have the answer to, and I immediately called Alex, on my drive back. But does the city, either whether it's city, EDC, or other lots, are there vacant lots or areas that have certain needs, or what are the barriers that are stopping businesses from coming? So is it water? Is it sewer? Is it broadband? Is it something else? So that was one of the questions that came up that I was not able to answer, but it's a great question because there are either now or soon will be resources available to help, help those barriers. So when you talk about incentive, if there's a plot of land that maybe doesn't have those resources, but whether we can use some of our resources or team up with the county, the state, or even federal funds to try to circumvent those and help those utilities get there, that's a huge incentive for some of these folks to come. So that was one of the questions I was asked. I found out in that meeting that Hitchcock wants to develop their 2004 corridor, right? To develop that side, but mainly on the other side of 6, but nonetheless, will partnering with someone like that, and we talked about using our resources, using our neighbors, finding what others are doing. Same is true with Texas City with some of their projects. What are other folks working on, that we can maybe partner with to say, well, listen, if you're going to already do some of the work, then maybe we can team together and put a joint application. We know that there's potential for development along different corridors that we could take advantage if we partner with another city or other entities, because there is that need and desire. And then the fact that we want to target some of these manufacturers in other areas of not just the state, but the country that might have a higher cost of living, who might want to relocate. Right now, we know there's a lot of companies moving from California, different states, even out of the country, that are moving to the states, and particularly to Texas, which is why Texas is the actual fastest growing state when it comes to business development. But I want to go through this list of questions to share some of the highlights from that meeting, if I can quickly. We talked about the fact that maybe we're too spread out and we need more connectivity. And we talked about maybe some of the industries where we are. So I'm going to kind of answer some of the questions ahead of time, but it's for a reason. We talked about aerospace. We talked about industry. We talked about essentially hospitality, because we know that tourism is driven by that, or restaurant or anything. We talked about retail in the form of just stores or grocery stores, and obviously tourism. As I'm taking notes, I'm kind of paraphrasing what we're saying. If I miss any, please let me know if there's other areas. But the first question I was asked is, what new economic industries do you believe would be a good addition to your community? Examples: advanced manufacturing, biomedical, information technology, et cetera. And are there currently plans to bring those industries to your community? So I posed that question to the group. I think that's kind of where we need to start, right?
What can I?
Absolutely.
Jump in.
Yeah, please.
Give me an example. Just like over here, I passed Laney Cole over here, that man wanted to develop that lot and turn down right there. I don't have a problem doing what people want. That's what you elected for, and they want that in there. But that's a vacant lot. It's just don't sit there. So what do we want to look at what you said? What can we put there that would be compatible with the community there? So we need to look at something like that, because we don't need to just sit there vacant.
I think you're talking about the Delaney Cole.
Oh, that's.
The 2 acre lot.
Yeah, if we could.
So I guess the question is, besides the ones that I kind of generally said, aerospace, industry could be anything.
Industry has to be manufacturing.
Manufacturing, okay.
Because again, this highway corridor, if there's any opportunity, it might be in some offshoot businesses that support manufacturing, like
Sure.
the old Midwest, Detroit, the automobile plants. There were a lot of businesses that
Centered around that.
right, that sprang up around those behemoth manufacturing outfits. And if Highway 3 had a chance, right? That might get a chance. We need an anchor. We need an anchor on the east side of the city that would be able to spur growth, maybe for small businesses on the east side of our city.
Well, what's the place that took over the old Texas Super there at the corner of Cedar and
ICCI.
Okay, see there,
Right.
they're a manufacturing type of business for the industry, isn't it?
They're a pre-commissioned cleaning company. So before they go online to start doing the refining piece, they go in and clean all the new pipes and things. So I understand it's our main line. But I'm sure they do other things.
Okay,
We have, don't we have some property down closer to where the levee is down there? That's be probably good for industry. Some type of business coming in like that.
That would be the way, if those business owners are not, open to maybe, pivoting towards some sort of residential arrangement. The other way would be to attract large manufacturers and then, provide opportunities for smaller business owners to service those large manufacturers in some of those smaller commercial structures.
I think that, I would agree with you, a major, road to work on, that's straight to Galveston.
Only keep it.
so, and going back to that, was there any other industry before we get into the clusters? Was there any other industry? I added manufacturing to the list. Was anything else that you guys thought maybe?
Well, of course, you would have to, live music arena here, that's gonna bring a type of industry within.
So entertainment, tourism.
And because Mark brand that no one else can duplicate for sports, and now the park board picking up our park, and that's gonna impact. Or hopefully, we got 55 to 50 instructors. I never thought that would happen, but now that we're concentrating on looking programs again, that, you know, we're already known for our great achievement in the area of sports. And now, you know, sports and entertainment kind of go together.
Gotcha.
Right, so you got this 12,000 seater that's coming to our track. That's gonna bring people that do sets and festivals and that type of industry. I think we do need to get with Live Nation and kind of meet with them. Live Nation is they are the goat of promotion. And they do everything for promotion, and they're gonna be in our little city of 19,000. So that is an opportunity to get with the people that, where Live Nation goes, their partners. Right, that spread up the stage and do all that kind of thing. So it's a probably the smallest volume fest we'll ever have. Because after this, and once the live music arena opens up, we'll be known for that, right? So, so I would say sports and entertainment.
Gotcha. Added those as well. And the clusters I have, and in no particular order, we know we've got the downtown corridor that's being worked on, State Highway 3, Texas Avenue, I guess with its entirety. I've got State Highway 146, we mentioned a little bit with partnership with Texas City, I-45. And then again, no particular order, Cedar and Bayou, which historically have been kind of smaller corridors, but nonetheless corridors. Are there any that I'm missing as far as clusters? Main Street, sorry, thank you. If there's any others that are, this is what we're trying to do, and then we can prioritize. And to that point, connectivity. One of the things that we're working on with our transit, a lot of folks that we need to get to these jobs can't get there because our transit may not correlate with what we currently have. Right, so that's another one of those things that we're working on as well. So going back to the set of questions quickly, does your current workforce meet the needs of the potential industry that you would like to see in your community? Well, we're getting there, the education is coming along. Are there education and training programs currently positioned to create a strong workforce for the community? I could tell you after meeting with COM and all of our ISD so far, except for Santa Fe, you know, the dollars are getting invested. COM passed a bond, Texas City ISD, Dickinson passed one, Hitchcock passed one, and Santa Fe, I believe, is going out for one. They're making the efforts, and primarily in the CT, in the job training, job placement in that facet. If there's any other areas that you feel that are missing, then they've asked us to just let them know. And if anything is coming down the pike, because as we know, we've talked about aerospace and expansion of aerospace. Now COM is going to have a new aerospace program. Are there any projects that would really help improve the economy in your area? For example, infrastructure, new development, travel, tourism. And are there plans to carry these projects out? There are no plans. What are the barriers hindering these projects? Another question I wanted to pose to the group, you know, as we go along.
You want to stop there?
Yes, absolutely.
I guess the question for us is the main question is, are there barriers? Is that what I heard?
Yes, sir.
Are
And
there
if so, what are they?
barriers hindering the projects that we believe as a community we should move forward with to enhance our economic development? What are the barriers?
Well, skill set, of course, the average person here, we have 13 years, maybe I think the last stat they gave was a high school diploma and 1 year of college education wise. And so we would have to do a lot of training and education, which I don't think we utilize enough of with TWC, the Texas Water Source Commission, as different programming. And I talked to Karen because I don't think they always do the best job of articulating the programs that they offer. But if we could have a voice for that,
Okay.
maybe we could do that and then have it so, for example, teachers, it's hard to find teachers right now.
Mhm.
Grassport did a apprenticeship program with Grassport College and TWC, where there's a pipeline created from a local high school to the colleges, to the schools, feeding teachers, new teachers that probably wouldn't be in education, but they were recruited, right? Because of this apprenticeship program that they have, creating those type of partnerships where, for instance, when we need telecommunicators, you're actually in the school talking about telecommunicators. So when they graduate, there's an opportunity for them with the city to work. So we're actually training our people, so you create pipelines. I think we need to, if we want those industries, we need to get with TWC to create those pipelines to do it, and they come with funding. So it's not so much that we're doing it alone, but we're doing it part.
Point.
And same thing with HGAC. HGAC has opportunities as well to
Yep.
do the same thing.
I think a barrier is, as it is with every area of our society these days, we're dealing with social media and other sources, resources of information. I won't call it a barrier as much as I'll call it an opportunity. We have an opportunity to clearly communicate vision for our city as it relates to economic development. And I think that we have the opportunity to focus that vision, to make it clear, to make it plain. And if our vision can become for economic development, focused, clear, and plain, we will cut through any and all other pieces of information. So again, I'm glad that we're having this time together today so that we can all get on this. Now, I believe we have enough feedback, or we continue to gather feedback in this vision to produce a vision that will be clear. Clearer the vision, the more powerful the vision, and I believe the better opportunity we would have for consensus from our members of our community. So let's focus on clarifying that vision. That would be my answer.
Hey, let me chime in on that, then what I'm hearing from the council, the EDC to concentrate on the sales tax base. Pick the sales tax, try to push that hard as we can, and then concentrate on Highway 3, try to see if we can do over there.
Jobs, job creation, yes,
Well, that'd be,
top priority.
yeah, whatever kind of business we get over there, bring in jobs.
Yes, sir.
Get away from residential like we've been doing, vacant lots and stuff. That's the two things I've got out of it so far.
We had discussion about type A and type B. Is this something that you guys are looking into? I heard we talked about the document. Is that something that is going to be done, or we just discussing it? Or?
We've been discussing, one of the things we brought it up is because of what Johnson Olson did. So that we can have a clear understanding, and because Ron Carter, one of the last things Ron Carter did before he passed was the trail, the African American.
Emancipation.
Trail, thank you. And we are not, like to your point, we're not monetizing on the tourism issue that we have right here. But that it is in all of it. But the first school was actually here in Marque, from Robert Star Cemetery. And I remember the letter that he wrote saying that we were going to participate in that, and we wanted to find out. And I think there's probably a study, but we need to make sure that we're part of that narrative. And that's why I said that the A and the B will help us perhaps to do it. But it's really, But what I've understood, and I'm still learning about it, it's kind of fluid, and that's why to his point, it's 246 pages. But there are different ways you can do it so that you can bring in our history, the bottleneck reduction and all that kind of thing, because I think we're missing out on that. And maybe it's not something that EDC does by itself, but maybe with other, with another board as well that we have to create, I don't know.
I just didn't want to leave this meeting and then later on, well, we talked about that.
Yeah.
Well, we want to be, I would like to be clear, I'm not saying we, this is me personally. I'd like to be clear, that we've done some things to help the city as an aid that maybe we won't be able to do anything. We've addressed some things like salary. We've addressed some things like helping our employees get raises and stuff like that. So while we might not be bringing businesses in at a stellar,
Yeah.
Right.
I want everybody to understand, there's a lot of good things that we are doing. And we've got some projects that I'm not at liberty to talk about today that we're talking about. And I've got a big smile on my face. I got a big smile on my face because we are pivoting. We are making a change. And it's been an honor, just an honor to be on this board. But I see we're not going in the same old direction. We're not going down the street looking for vacant lots anymore. It's hard for me not to say something about this. But I just think we have time. If this group sitting around this table have time, we'll be back and you guys will be back. Or you won't let us come back. You know? But I really think we'll be back on back. I'm really.
I want to address, Mr. Lane, I want to address what you asked about our council so that we can be clear.
Yes,
The clearer we can be, the better.
yes.
For what will have to happen. As mayor, I have had no plans or no contemplations or any conversations as relates to doing anything with the Fort Lee. I have not heard any councilman have any serious contemplations about a Fort Lee. I've heard people ask questions in preparation for this meeting to understand, so that we can have a thoughtful and educated discussion. But that has not risen to any level of seriousness in my conversations, as you clear, and I don't believe from my conversations with colleagues on this council, it has risen to the level of seriousness. So that's the answer for.
Well, I just wanted to ask that question because sometimes when things are said, then later on, they become.
He's talking for himself.
Okay.
I'm one vote.
Okay.
And my vote matters. So I am looking into different ways that we can do the EDC report, because there's different ways you can do it. So I would say,
Let's clarify that, Nancy. Have you brought that to council, or is this something that you are contemplating?
that's something I'm really good.
Okay, so what I'm saying is, nobody's brought that to council.
Okay.
To consider, that's what I'm.
Just so we know what.
Yeah.
Our guy. That's.
Just want to interject. I would hope that we as council not fall into the ongoing trap of what Mark does, is that we talk a lot, but we don't formalize.
Right.
And I hope to give you guys the guidance. And in my world, I would be seeking a formal document that says, here's our thoughts, to the EDC in a formal action so that we can all identify and formalize that in writing and pass that on and be part of it. That's.
I agree. I agree.
But that would be very good.
In terms of a resolution.
And we have action items here today, on this agenda, that we can begin that process to Joe's point.
So are we going to ever formally be able to get the small business development center to come down and do training like they do out in the city, or are we going to make people go to the city? Because most of our city, I can guarantee, don't even know about it, much less know where to go. So if they can go to EDC once it's all done, instead of having to drive into the city to do it.
Great question. Two-pronged answer. first and foremost, Amy Reed, as chairman mentioned, she has been coming to some of our meetings. She came to our meeting last week. She's been coming down to the chamber, Texas Marque Chamber, giving classes and resources. She's also going to be at Mayor Bell's summit as well as the SBA will be there. And so, yeah, we're trying to bring that here. We're taking those first steps now. And since Mr. Culp has been the president of the Texas Marque Chamber, he's really made great strides in trying to bring that education piece to its members. And I think that's part of what our selling point is on our small business grant is, hey, go take advantage of these resources. It's right here for you. So, but no, that's a good question.
What are we doing with the space next to Art Talk? Is that our month?
We are trying to fill it. I do have a prospect right now that has a thriving business in Galveston I'm working with. Councilman Ross came to our meeting last week too, and we were talking about, and this is something we talked about over the last month or so, is at some point, and we may be there, that we need to go ahead and take the next steps to go ahead and build that space out. And I'll just call it a white box, they go ahead and get the electrical in and sheetrock and paint and basic floors and some lighting and things to make it a little bit quicker turnkey for someone to come in and do the finishing touches of what they might want. But again, we worked with a young lady for quite some time. It didn't quite work out. So we've had 2 of those. And then now we're working with someone that does have a business that's profitable in Galveston, and they're interested in the space, and we're going to continue to work on that. But we want to get it filled up as much as anybody.
But I just want to keep focusing on the barriers that was, so one item I included in the barrier is we have a community that is partially developed. I say partially developed. We have aspects of it that could be considered rural, which is to say that one plan or one is not a catch-all to solve everything. This is something you hear about actually a lot of economic development issues of zoning. Barriers for communities sometimes are, if there is a better zoning guideline or ordinance or neighboring city, I'm going to go and probably pursue those development in that city because it's less cost. And in my discussions with some of the developers that I've been talking with out on the district D, that seems to be one issue that pops up. It's easier on our zoning side to develop in other cities than it is in Walmart. We've made a zoning ordinance, and I talked to this one first, and it's still on my list to come back, but I'm working on it pretty quickly. Is that we have a very difficult zoning. That's a barrier in my book. Clarify, work on that side. How long we're going to go
You're fine. We're at 2. I think it's scheduled to go to 4. So before you proceed.
That's all.
No. You're fine, Joe. I just want to say before Joe proceeds, if anyone has to step out, certainly you're more than welcome to step out unless you are a council member. We have to have 3 of us in the room at all time, and so we have to do it one at a time. But the rest of us, certainly, if you're needing to step out, you're more than welcome. You can proceed.
And I hope it is something that I'm reminded of just last week when we had a water line break there. The city at that day had approximately 60 water line breaks, around 60 part of the city. And I know we had residents, including myself, who were a bit frustrated because the water kept running. But it was a question of prioritizing, and that is utilizing emergency contract that the council approved with Android, and they were out there as well as dealing with the largest breaks as well as the city staff. So I say that in this context that where the frustrating part was in this process, and we've seen this over and over again, we as a city don't do a very good job of memorializing stuff. So where's the cutoff valve? We don't know. And because nobody ever kept accurate records. So I hope that we take an opportunity as we have a discussion, that we memorialize this as well, right, this discussion. I guess I always want my points on this. So positive outcome in this post-COVID period. And in the post-COVID period of EDC, I would ask that you go out and tell your story. What did we do during COVID as that was successful? And at the top of it, your small business grant program. And I would ask that you go out and get testimony from the small business grant owners that receive those. They're the people that tell the story, not us. We're considered the politicians. We're gonna always be rosy about stuff. But let the business persons that were the recipients of those dollars and the amounts tell how this helped my business. Like someone I think you mentioned. So let them be the testimony of that. And number two, something that I learned, we still have a small business program, if I'm mistaken, now still available. Is that true? Yeah. And I wasn't that aware of it, but tell that story as well, that there are still opportunities to come and open that door on that side. So outcomes written that they're in front of us in black and white. And then your property inventory in the presence of our city manager. I brought in a young man whose family owns various hotel properties across the state of Texas. And here's this man who didn't even know about that tool that was available and saying, I didn't know all this was even available in Marque. That's why I'm building my places in Texas City. So somehow promoting, making that part of a document that's in front of us and repeating the story. Let's remember under our circumstances today, we have to have repetition. We do have to be different. I love that. We do have to stand out different. Next time wear your sequence oaths or something at a convention and stand out. And then here's a request. This is a request because it does fall under the category of what the type A can do in terms of development. Is I keep getting asked the question. I think Mary, you've been around when I've been asked about the roadway behind the Sam's and the Walmart to connect the Margot Large. If we are to meet the sales tax goals that we have in the city as a community, we need to have a way of getting more people to our businesses there. That's the business shopping area for the Margot Large residents. And when that frontage road is all backed up, especially on weekends when you should be out shopping, the inclination is, well, I'm just not going to do that right now. And so to the extent that we can start having that discussion about how that can be accomplished, I would love to, encourage us to put that in terms of a resolution and go there as well too, and get people excited about that possibility. And then the last item is we do need, Alex, and I mentioned it to you once before, that unfortunately there was no follow-up, but I'm going to repeat it again. We have to have further collaboration with the Houston Galveston Area Council because they've expanded their economic development side. They actually have a whole new department dedicated to that. And in fact, the beginning of that is a guidebook that was authored by Houston Galveston Area Council called Bringing Back Main Street, a Guide to Downtown Revitalization for Local Governments. And it's there. It provides tools, it provides ideas, and there's staff there at HGAC that would love to work with us. Lamarck had historically not been involved in that. And now I'll be making an announcement at tonight's meeting with regard to just being there at the table and working with the city manager here, because I send him tons of stuff, is the follow-up. And we're part of the exciting funding that we made the cut on as well too, on that side. So, so it has, this guy has specific strategies. And so I asked that you take a look at that. And that item that I mentioned to you was the small business funding opportunity. And HVAC has a small business development, they have a disadvantaged business enterprise section, number one, as well as the Gulf Coast Economic Development District, which is something that we can participate in as well too. So I would love to bring you along, introduce you, Alex, or other board members, Chairman Smith, Cleveland, guys, let's go down there. And let's make them know who Lamarck is and our interest in that.
Alex, have you did or maybe the board, any of you guys done a sort of an audit or even an informal survey of potential business owners as it relates to issues that they may have come to deal with as it relates to zoning or permitting processes in our city? Is there a theme with new potential business owners about those things that Mayor Pro Tem is brought up?
Not an audit. Obviously I sit in with the pre-development meetings, and so you do, hear sometimes those challenges that zoning does present. But not an audit specifically, no, sir.
Do you have a feeling or some sort of comment as it relates to how we might be able to improve those zoning ordinances or those different?
Sure. I think the city has done a little of that, with the C3 and C4 zone. I think that just came to be about 2 years ago. And so I think that was kind of a step in that direction. But I think, things do change, but, Lamarck had a challenge from the beginning because we were trying to zone a 55-year-old city. And so, as we know, the east side had already developed kind of a mixed use development. Mayor, you'd mentioned, kind of there's stores on in the neighborhoods and different things as it first developed. But the west side had not developed yet. And a lot of our city, when you look at the zoning map, it's single family residential. And so when we're talking about big picture items, how do we have the real estate, for the sales tax, for the job creation? And I don't know what the percentage is, but we could pull the map up and look and kind of get an idea. But the majority of our city is single family residential zoned. And so you talk about, there's a challenge when you talk about economic development. But I mean, that's my comments right now.
So just to clarify, you believe that the C3 and the C4 designations in our zoning ordinance actually benefit?
Well, I don't know. We weren't involved in that process as an economic development corporation. What I was suggesting was that the city has looked recently at the zoning in general and has made some adjustments.
Question for information purposes only. When businesses fail in our city, or when they move or close, for whatever reason, many times people believe that there was something, right, that their elected representatives could have done, or maybe even some of their appointed officials could have done. Case in point, this Church's Chicken building and business ordeal. Speak to, if you would, just for information purposes, how we as a council or even economic development corporation, how we play a part in that, or how we're able to impact that or not. Because I think people are, they may have their information.
Well, unless the city owns the property, I mean, you have some limitations there, right? I mean, obviously there's things in place, and I think Councilwoman Yancey's done an excellent job of trying to get information. You know, our folks at Retail Strategies have worked to try to get information as well. Back when they were in Atlanta, they sent somebody to Atlanta to try to talk to those folks. But basically, that one's a little bit interesting because it wasn't just the Lamarque location. There was about 100 that went dark at the same time on the same ownership. And so I said that makes it, you know, a little bit unique in that regard. But unless you own the real estate, it makes it a challenge unless they're doing something wrong, whether there's a code violation or something. I mean, it's not against the law to own property and not fill it.
You said 100 went dark at the same time?
Roughly, that's my understanding.
And then you said something about the ownership. Are you saying that these 100 were owned by a certain
Franchise.
franchisee? So that this one franchisee went dark at 100?
They had a bunch of them, yes.
Dickinson went dark.
Okay.
Tech City did, they're back up. I do know those are the ones around here, the two that are.
So that would lead us to believe that that's some sort of business issue,
Correct.
economic, personal business issue. And that would lead us also to believe that has nothing to do with Lamar.
It doesn't matter.
It's not.
Okay.
And,
Very good.
and those things can be hung up in the court system for a while. I mean, you still, that's not in our control. No.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yes, sir.
Kind of along those lines, you know, are there any challenges that our current businesses are facing? Right, because one of the hardest things to do, you know, we talk about recruiting businesses and so forth, but how about retaining the ones that are here? Are there any challenges that you've heard from any current business owners? And if not, if we could have our ear to the ground of that to make sure, hey, what do you need? Are you good? Maybe they have plans to expand. You know, we talk about A&A Machinery being one of our staples, right? Hey, I know they worked with you guys to get a grant, I think, for more equipment like a few months back. Do they want to expand? Do they want to grow? Is there a need to do that? Or I mean, not just them, but anybody else, like Walmart, I heard are thinking about starting to do, I mean, it sounds crazy, I'm about to say this, but you know, people are at some of their locations about drones, right? We know that Amazon, for example, did the e-fleet and it's going exceptionally well. So what other things or what other opportunities, I guess, there? I know Mr. Olson, sorry to cut you off.
Well, one big challenge is nationwide is the economy. People are not spending money because their light bill went up almost double. Gasoline went up, diesel went up. I mean, people, they're on fixed incomes in our city, a lot of them on fixed income. Having a hard time buying their medicine. So people not going out and spending money. But you gotta have consumers or business are not gonna make it. That's simple.
Another thing, I was reading, some businesses had to close because of the heat. And in fact, they had a lot of places that the AC, some businesses had to close. There's a whole lot going on. One of them in the Marque, some of the struggling businesses, look at a lot of them are older businesses. Some of them that are afraid to change time. Winter day and time that you can order everything right now from the seat, and having the knowledge to be able to keep up with things, they're not changing. And because of that, it's hurting you. And they've done this the same way. A lot of us been walking to places, been looking like this and with kids. And that won't change, and so do we bring the knowledge to them? That's something that we need to do. We reach out, hey, I'm so up here, just, ask, but you have a training class over here with this, great, putting that information to them. Do we change the way that we send some of our mail alerts out to the businesses? Or we make sure that they get them that way so they know what's going on? Or do we start recognizing, just taking the ownership and say, hey, so-and-so's been around, hey, you've been around, we just want to highlight you. We don't want you to do nothing special, we just appreciate you being around, Another thing we talked about, possibly, at the downtown March, making sure everybody looks uniform. Something that says, you look at, oh man, look, they all have this area, things like that, that's appealing. Stuff we may send out to them and say, hey, thank you, being here and things like that, we start taking that pride in there. So I think that's a lot of things we can do. We look at some of the stuff that it hurts to see some of them. We got 2 chicken places closed, that always have money.
you know, oh, that's good. And so, and when you start digging it, they have nothing to do with it. And now it's almost mixed, and it's just locked into there, so, you know, just checking into other places and see what's going on. Hey, how's the business going? Hey, you know, we have this going, you know, did we reach out to and those things, let them know it's still here, it's still here. And, you know, that we have these resources and keep the resources going. You know, we have some of this going on, it's great. People can make it, and hey, what's the next? Sometimes people already know, but having something ready saying that, hey, next thing we're gonna be doing, let's be teaching this and having somebody, and it's not about the numbers, it's just hold it. If we hold it, you know, we get to the city, you look at some of the things that happen, Computer West 3. You have somebody out there, think that, hey, this is happening, and you're just pushing it and have that calendar going on, that each month they have something more to be going, so. Yeah, yeah. And then the one to the city, yeah.
But you know, to Ms. Dean's point, case in point, I'll bring up Arts Pharmacy, right? This is an institution in our city. But we know that the pharmacy industry has changed. And to your point, to your excellent point, Ms. Dean, perhaps it might be incumbent upon us to help educate those business owners into new opportunities in their industries. What do pharmacies look like today? What are they doing to survive, to thrive? How have they expanded their business? How have they diversified their business? You know, how have they evolved based on the competition and the climate that they're in? I think that is an excellent point. I think that many of our businesses, the older businesses, are failing because they don't know how to adapt. They don't know how to evolve. And I think if we're speaking to, like you said from the beginning, Alex, if we're speaking to the retention of businesses, I think that's a tremendous point. And opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you. Once again, I'll just say this, under the concept of different parts of the city's challenges on the business side are applicable here. I've talked with West Side business owners, and they all have their biggest complaint is the traffic. People come in and complain they can't get there. They're the ones that are by and large using they've signed up for the Uber Eats and the DoorDashes and stuff because they're willing to pay the $3 something. They charge them a good amount. The businesses downtown here can't do that, and they've already increased the price. I just so happened to run into the owner of Art of Coffee, and his partner both were there, and they only keep that place open because of a promise that they made to Ron Carter. The owner's owner there is or their business interests are initially in the floral business, and that's they have a business relationship with you all. There was a commitment, and that's the only reason I keep this open. I'm losing money all the time over here. And it's not because it's not an old business, it's not willing to change. They're there, right? It's new and it's dynamic, and everything else is how do we get people there? I've often suggested nobody knows they're there off of Highway 3. Maybe it's our job to put some great attractive signs there saying business district or coffee house, just like they do along the freeways, right? To say eatery or whatever is up ahead. So on that side. This also brings up the opportunity, and perhaps you mentioned Arts Pharmacy. I've known them for a long time. My brother worked there, who passed on there for a while. Maybe it's the opportunity, and the city manager brought this up before, is to really look at public-private partnerships as well. We haven't done anything with our other funding. These are some of the things that when we get into it, is our community is some of them are on fixed income. If you look at our statistics, how can we develop a partnership between the city and Arts Pharmacy as a local business that loves to deal with seniors, that has a in their heart, they love that. That perhaps we can help them, if they're challenged on medicines and stuff. There are some ideas and what's out there that I could bring, that other cities have done along those lines. And, but also in the greater area, public-private partnerships, in terms of development, others. And I don't have those on top of my head right now, but certainly that's something that is other cities are utilizing quite effectively in terms of how they bring them about.
Yeah, Joe, you bring up a good point. You know, I don't know, again, if we can get away with it, but you know, what hurts business is the high rent they gotta pay. If the EDC owned the building, you can make the rent affordable. I mean, you can get it down to where you make $100 a month, but I mean, that it's an example, but that'd be one way to help a business if we own the building and we leased it out to them where they could afford it. It's just something to think about.
Well, that's the business incubator program I did
Yeah.
in January, that.
And it says there, it ain't gonna hurt us, but it's money that's not drawing interest. I'm big on interest, y'all know that. But it would get a business in here cheap for them. I mean, you don't gotta make $500 a month. You don't gotta make $2,000 a month if we own it.
Right.
But we gotta make something, but it's tying our money up. That's the big thing. And interest would help us function because, you know, we make money off.
And along the lines of, you just gave me the jog my mind, public-private partnership is the governmental entity, the EDC, for example, of the city, being the sponsor of a tax credit program and working with a developer or an owner of management company that manages apartment complexes to do a development using tax credits where the bottom structure is commercial space. And then there's affordable housing units there in the other areas. Our challenge in the city is that we don't have enough staff that's vested or aware of how to do that. But that's where you have Houston Gallup Area Council that's willing to work with us to provide some of that expertise.
Yeah, but again, you know, like we own the building that Art Coffee's in, we own the one next to it.
Yeah.
And we help them on their deeds, and they, you know, struggling.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we can too. He's listed on his own line. We can come up with a plan, but, so we had over there where this, homework, there. We come up with a plan where people can use that spot. Because I believe that people want to put businesses there, make it, not easy, but put a plan in place for people to know that they have to follow this. And in order to have that, so we can put businesses there, because food trucks are everything. People don't want to pay rent, but they'll buy a food truck and they'll put it out there. And even to the point saying, hey, you can just bring it on this weekend. And just something that advanced that. I think we just need to utilize that. You know, one of the things that we have downtown, we have one building we count on. What if that building was like 8 different, you know, what if it was like 4 or 5 different things? It was a gift shop, tattoo shop, ice cream shop. What if that building was just diced up and what kind of, you know, that needs to come out, something else comes in, but that one building that we're counting on. When we just really around the corner, we can figure out a way where somebody would be able to say, hey, I can, you know, I can come in, I can bring all this stuff that we need and put it out here. You know, so I think that's something like that, not to lose track of, we try to utilize that too.
And these are not new ideas, but proven ideas that have already happened. So the business incubator idea that I brought to you, actually from the Goldman Sachs program. So that's, and that program has been going on for years, but the thing is, it has to do with the vision, right? And the clarity of what we want to mark. And so one person can't do it, we all have to kind of come together. and be willing to do something different to provide incentive. I think you said it, or Mayor said about Highway 3 incentive or zone and business district. We give you this thing, well, that's.
And that's part of Highway 3, right?
Do something there where I know, Alex had said earlier that it was cumbersome, some of the ordinances that the barriers they have to get over.
Talk about zoning.
Yeah, right, with the farmers, with Phillips thing, and so some of and I have heard that it's easier to do business in other places than it is in Marque. And so I don't know, so maybe that's something that EDC needs to look at so that we can be encouraged.
Well, you know, to that point, again, that's something that we have to have produced to us in a report form. I think the opportunity is through our city manager's office, if we direct him to. We can get quarterly reports from our development services department that would tell us basically what sorts of issues developers are having, you know, where are the successes, you know, what do they like, what areas are they concerned about, and that report can be produced should be produced to this council, so that we can then respond. And again, it's an opportunity to do that, do just that.
And then take the necessary action to.
Put a bullet plan and put it together, so we all can be educated to know, okay, this is what you have to get, because you know, people should call all the day, but we send it up and we all be on one board to know, hey, this is what you need to do. And you able to have a reason.
I have a question for the board, for Alex. Ms. Dean, you talked a little bit about that food truck part, right? Are we still contemplating as a community, as a city, leasing that space out to some entity, some business to manage it as a food truck park? Is that still the contemplation for that area? And if so, as an economic development corporation, are we considering building that area up? Right? I mean, I'm sure there's some infrastructure needs. I think that
Can I start answering on that?
yes.
There's 3 people that have tried to make that thing go. And that food truck gotta make around $600 to $800 a day to be profitable. And they're not, no one making near that. $100 a day or something. I don't think it will work for folks food trucks. The last one that told us, you know, we make a long story short, we had to terminate the contract. He wouldn't even return our calls. But I'm opposed to doing anything like that with the food truck. I think it's a failure. It's cost us some serious money. And you know, we tried it 3 times and it's not working. I don't see that changing. So I think I'd vote against this if we come up on our EDC agenda.
Well, what if we put a company out there, put something out there, it could be a carnival, something that we, you know, that's contracted that first cover with insurance, you know, it's something that can work, and we get now, maybe a carnival, put something out there where the community can see that this is happening. It's something that we don't have to babysit, and something that contracted on, so. And it's on Highway 3, you know.
Mr. Mayor, I see us keep an open mind in that area. The right person. Talked to 2 people that have talked about some things out there other than food trucks. And of course, in and out of Houston, League City area, in this area. So they're making some decisions now. I think if the right person comes to us with the right idea, we certainly consider whatever it is.
I think that a lot of it has to do with, you know, business fail as well. And I'm honest, when it's done right, it's very profitable when it's done right. But again, that's, you know, I think you need to vet people a little bit more. I'm just gonna be honest.
You could even ignore your back.
Well, maybe with that process.
Do you know how many buildings in Marque have a historic designation?
I don't know the whole lot.
I don't think.
What do we ever look at this? And I was thinking of, like corner, Isn't that the Masonic building? That would be considered a historic building. That has opportunities for other dollars and grants and talking about the development of the district there. And they're selling the building as well too.
Building right there where Miss Evelyn used to be, used to be a car dealership at one time before it was driving.
But that's something along those lines.
Is there, so there's no buildings that are.
I'm not gonna say there's no for certain. I don't know a whole lot. Looking.
Fuller Pharmacy, the old Marque Pharmacy down here on Highway 3. There's used to be a car hop place back in my day, so all the way back to the car hop. Yeah, it's right next to where the Marque Pharmacy used to be.
Oh, we're talking about where
It's right down.
Mr.
They used to have a barbecue place. in there,
Joe used to own it.
But they had several,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
where Joe went like Sonic and stuff like that, where you could drive in it.
Long time
Yeah.
ago.
I go down Major.
What is it, the story for us? That opens a whole other source of grant dollars, designation.
Right.
It does, so you're expert on that, Sam Collins.
And that's one, I think in honor of Ron Product too, I think we need to finish that when we started with the trail.
Yeah, that's part of it, you could be a combination. But that's all that too, and because that trail is coming down a lot of Highway 3.
So maybe that's something we do, that we do that we have to do.
Yeah, here where the
Look into that.
nursery is on Highway 3.
So then it won't
Texas
stop.
Supermarket, Savages, that's where they started.
The historic foundation. I think that's a good place to start and see.
Didn't the Mark have a historical conference?
Esther Rice used to
Yeah.
keep all that stuff together and keep that off over what happened to all those things.
Right next to Hart's Pharmacy used to be a bank. It's where First Bank of Lamar started. But y'all didn't know that either.
No. I think that here. We had a sign.
Yeah. It wasn't a sign, no, it was a drive-in, old drive-in, like they used to have the terrace.
Yeah, that was.
They had one there.
Their action items.
That seat was right there too.
Let's try that. We're at about 3:13. So we're gonna need time to actually council back. So let's move on to Steve had some more information he wants to share.
I just wanted to go over the notes that I have so far. A couple of points, and if I missed some, I know Alex, I saw you taking notes. I think Thomas Manny taking notes. So one of the things that I noted is we need to officially close the first plan. Right, that's kind of be the first step that we need to do, whether it's part of the new plan, whatever the case is. The overall consensus is we want to try as we move the city forward and towards the Vision 2050 plan. The thought is to be less reliant on property tax. Some of the challenges we brought up are the fact that we're too spread out. We lack connectivity in certain things. We talked about some of the industries that we want to look into, or some of the areas we want to focus on being aerospace, industry, manufacturing, entertainment, sports, hospitality, retail, and tourism. As kind of the major focuses for us to have. We talked about working together, inviting each other to certain things, whether it's the mayor and the councilman's dinner, opening that up to EDC. We talked about some of the clusters that we have being, our downtown corridor, Main Street, say Highway 3, Texas Ave, 146, I-45, and then Cedar and Bayou. We talked about maybe certain incentives that we could have for signs or anything else. And there's another project that I'm working on to see about getting some paint as far as for the entire area. We talked a little bit about code and the empty lots and how that kind of was the focus before, and the residential being that focus. I do want to say there are some things that we're bringing to fruition to try to eliminate that list altogether. The list was well over 120 properties or 140 properties, if I'm not mistaken. It's now at about 60, at least if I remember correctly, the last time that we checked. We did meet with some folks in hopes to see if we can keep reducing that number and seeing what we can do towards that. And then working with our partners was one of the big things that was discussed, identifying who all the Pied Pipers are, who all the players are, and seeing who we can partner with in some of these things to kind of overcome some of these challenges. As far as barriers, one of the things that I would like to do to try to identify some of these funds is identify if there are any parcels or any areas of the city that are missing some of these things, whether it's broadband, water, sewer, drain, whatever it could be, so that we can try to eliminate some of these barriers to make it more attractive. Making sure that the EDC website is full with all of the empty properties and to keep pushing those so that we have that available. Alex says all the time about EDC being a team sport. Some of these flyers, I think everybody, I sound like everybody would like copies of these small cards. If you guys can get some more, I think that would be great, because anytime that we go out to eat or go anywhere and meet with the business owner, say, hey, give this a thought. This is who we are. It's more than just a business card. Here, it does provide a whole lot more. So kudos to you guys for that. And as we kind of go down the list, I mean, there's a lot of notes that were made. But the fact that we want to create a formal document from council, right? And so forth, advising EDC on the next steps. And we talked about some of the action items that we have on the actual agenda, being what steps we're going to take to go to these. So if we want to go down those items, Mayor, did I leave anything? I mean, there was a lot of discourse, but I try to paraphrase it a little bit.
On the cards, is there anything the council might want added to it? Did you tell Alex and Mandy? Before they make up more, it sound like they want more cards. Yeah,
If there are any concerns, I would suggest that council email staff and then y'all can have a conversation with individual council members, see if you can come up with a resolution. Would that be agreeable for council? Just contact them directly. Your opinion. You heard it.
Can we put a cutoff time on that so they can make more cards?
Absolutely, absolutely,
A couple of weeks, but we.
absolutely. 14 days,
Yeah,
14 days from this day.
get it done.
Kara? Is that a minute?
You have enough cards to take the tip out?
We ordered 300 with this first batch, and we probably have 150 left or something like that. So just let us know how many you need. You need another 50, we can get them to you.
Okay.
If there's nothing further, I think we can start redressing our item 3 due business so that we can memorialize some of these directives. And put everybody on the same page, so we'll take item, let's read item 3 new business, items presented to council for discussion and possible action. Item 3.1, mission, vision, and goals. Discussion possible action regarding the mission, vision, and goals of the Marque Economic Development Corporation. And I will entertain a motion to direct economic development staff to draft preliminary mission, vision, and goal statements for the approval of the Economic Development Corporation Board, as well as the ratification of the city council. I'll entertain that motion. The second. Any discussion on item 3.1?
Clerk, who's preparing that?
Basically, it will be the responsibility of the economic development director and staff. It will be approved preliminarily by the corporation, the board, and then they will present it for us as council for ratification. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Item 3.2, council item open. I'll read if there are any motions. I don't have one in mind, but if there are any motions, any actions, please provide the motion. Item 3.2. Roles and responsibilities, discuss possible action regarding the legal authority of the Economic Development Corporation. I believe that I understand that clearer today. If there are others that on council that I believe they do not, I will entertain a motion.
Well, I would move that we, at least for the benefit of all our residents, have a formal presentation before council by the city attorney as to, and the city manager, as to the type A and type B scenarios.
Would you then include also in that motion, a presentation on what council's responsibilities are versus Economic Development Corporation Board members' responsibilities are?
Yeah, I'm sure.
There's a motion on the floor by Mayor Pro Tem. We've heard that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on item 3.2? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Item 3.3, the Marque 2050 plan, discussion possible action regarding the Marque 2050 plan. Of course, council, this is the plan that I brought forth the council so that we can have a vision for our city and a blueprint to move forward. And so I will entertain a motion for the city manager to work with the Economic Development Corporation to provide for an RFP not to exceed $40,000 to develop our Lamar 2050 plan. I'll entertain that motion.
Can I have some discussion on that before we all vote on it? Yeah,
That's the motion. Kiara, could you read it back for us when it's time? Let's let James.
okay, are we gonna take the old one that we have and we're gonna look at what we need to pick up in that one too?
That would be part of the RFP. If you're asking if that would be part of the RFP, Mr. Garcia and Mr. Getty, you both will be working on this. Will that be part of the RFP?
I think they should stand alone. Let's finish up. If we, again, I'll provide my report that I've provided. Hopefully those old reports can be found. And then the new one's gonna stand on its own, the new strategic plan.
I believe, I sound like what James is asking
When
is
they
the
incorporated,
unfinished elements of the old.
I would presume that the folks will tell us, again, the new direction, new vision, particularly along those checkpoints of 5, 10, 15. So you're gonna see some redundancy, I bet. That's my guess.
So I would want to make a note that we would definitely want them, you all to have them at least look at, like, for reference. As they move forward with.
Yeah, they'll get a
That's
copy.
fine,
of it,
Jim.
sir.
yes, fine.
Entertain a motion. Just a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item 3.4, program. Discussion possible action regarding potential new programs. Again, council, I will entertain a motion. Any new program, one of the things that I would like to, for us to consider, and I'm not suggesting it be a motion form now, Councilman Ross, is the idea that we have to have some sort of plan for, how we do it. But that plan can come out of a new about 50 or 50. So, how you feeling about that, Councilman Ross? Do you want to allow that to be birthed out of the 2050?
I believe that Highway 3 and our main avenues, Main Street and Texas Avenue, should be birthed out of the 2050 plan. And we develop it because it'll have a stronger input from the rest of the city that way, the rest of us, I should say, that way.
The only potentially new program that I heard was for you guys to draft something or look at a new sign.
Correct.
Assistance program was the only item that I readily identified as new.
Just for the sake of that, but I'm working on other stuff, can we just call it a business beautification program? Because it might encompass more than just signs. Is that?
What about the incentive we were talking about? Would that come from council?
That's,
Tax incentive.
that's council. Yeah, that's your.
Any motions for item 3.4?
The motion would be that, to develop and present to council and EDC both initially a new, was it business beautification plan?
Or program or something like that. On the plans.
Is that a motion?
The motion.
Did you get that, Kim? Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item 3.5, real estate. Discussion possible action regarding vacant properties in the city of Marque. Again, council line open for any motions.
Man, if I could just chime in on that, it's not directly related to this, but one of the programs we're working on. It talks about vacant properties, it also includes vacant land. It may not be owned by the city or EDC, but in general, one of the things that we're trying to do is to enhance the relationships of some of the folks that may have some construction loans. For example, I know Coastal has one, Amico has one, I believe ACU has one. But if we could try to educate some of those folks that may have some of these vacant lots. And I say that because the original thought of what the EDC and COBA were working to do to revitalize the area was eventually get rid of a lot of these empty lots. So one of the things that we've been doing, kind of working on that, is having folks that have these empty lots that may have a hindrance because they can't get a construction loan, introduce them to some possibilities. So although not directly related to any land that we may own, because I don't think between the city and EDC, there's very many empty lots that are owned. But something along the line where we could try to facilitate that, because vacant land, whether we own it or not, is still the actual nuisance. Since that we are moving away from it in a sense, because we're sales tax driven, but finishing that off to try to get that empty lot list from 60 to hopefully 30 in the next 5 years here would be probably something we could do with some of those type of programs.
The other
Just a
thing
thought.
that we didn't really touch on, it has to do with the excess properties of Texas City ISD that are now for sale that Marque taxpayers pay. So I would definitely want to look into those excess properties to see if we can purchase those
So you said chance to access properties
owned by Texas City
owned by
ISD.
Texas City. And what were you, what did you, I'm sorry. I said,
I would not, I would say provide a communication between empty lot owners and potential development concerning potential development. I'm not sure how to probably word that really. Because it's not an incentive, right? It's just us trying to communicate, similar to what we're doing with the website. It's communicating those two and saying, hey, if you own an empty lot that you're not doing anything with. If you're not doing anything with it, would you like to know information about a potential offer to go build? Are you ready to develop, whatever the case is? Because those empty lots could become a nuisance.
Just a quick question. Empty lots. If you know. Did any of our, after Hurricane Ike, or even Harvey, there were some buyout programs with the GLO. Do you know if any of our city properties, any properties were acquired under that?
I'm not aware. I'm not aware.
We didn't do anything.
But you can ask me why.
Yeah,
Sure.
I hear the mayor wants to. So you start developing, start concentrating strictly on sales tax type of stuff. Buying vacant lots. We need to get away from that. We're gonna tower money up in a vacant lot that we can't rent out. That don't make sense. If we're gonna tower money up, tie it up in a building that we can rent out. And get a business in here. Ain't no business gonna set up on a vacant lot.
No, but they may, I mean.
Yeah, we need to be big enough that they want to come to the city.
Like, for example,
It's big enough.
Lake Road has that, we have that big
Yeah.
property that's, you know. If they're not asking for it. But if we're talking to businesses and we say, hey, because we're the connector, right? You guys are the connector. You say, hey, you got this, and you're looking for this. So it's just a matter of getting it together. Because they got some relatively, I'm just talking about Texas, and then again, it goes back to identity. And what are we gonna do with it? What are they gonna do with, there's a lot, I don't know if we get it on there, I'm sorry, but there's a lot of opportunities. And
Yeah.
even if we can't do it through the tool of EDC,
Well,
but let's just know that it's out there, and that's what this workshop really is about.
yeah, what I'm concerned with is, we're gonna take a pretty big hit if for too long
Right.
on some other stuff that we know about.
Right.
And we're gonna be in it without what, million and a half
No,
in our value.
Again,
What's that other deal?
if everything that we were working on were happening at one time, which it won't, I mean, we need everything we've got. But, everything doesn't happen at once, and so our coffers will be replenished as we go through that process, but. I have worked with Margaret Lee with Tech City ISD, sent some prospects over there. I don't know exactly how all they're marketing it, but that's, thinking about our website, how do we get those properties up to help them market it? Because I don't know how they're doing that specifically.
We just gotta watch our findings.
right. And this is not necessarily, so let me say this, not necessarily that we're spending, but we're connecting, like with HVAC. there are grants that the EDC can be a part of. A lot of the things that we're talking about is what Dickinson was stuck in 10 years ago, and then they created the economic management district to be able to fund. That's how they were able to fund their scholarship for COM through that district. So they changed some of their tools. So I'm saying, let's just look at that, and that goes back to the motion.
Grants take time to get.
And it was,
Caesar did that.
okay, real quick, the comment on the vacant lots was not for purchase,
Right.
but to connect some of those current vacant lot owners to possibly some of these other funding sources that they may, just connecting the dots is what I was suggesting.
Okay.
So that those owners can say, well, you know what, I didn't know there was a construction loan available. If out of those 60 lots that are available, if 15 of them take advantage of that, that's a 25% reduction in your, so that was more along the line I was saying. No,
You want us to buy them.
no. What I was saying is, I don't think there's very many residential lots that we currently own right now.
I want that money.
Yeah, no, I wasn't implying that, but similar to what you're doing, similar to doing with your Moody, right? Similar to what you're doing in that sense too. It's kind of saying, hey, here's an opportunity.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
if not, even if they own those lots and they would like those lots to be placed on that site, it's also connecting that. 'Cause that means there's 60 possible lots that could be
Okay.
added to that list. Right, and then somebody else might come and say, you know what, I'm a resident developer, I don't need the credit union, I didn't know you had an empty lot, I didn't know this was, connecting the dots.
Okay, very good.
Working with local realtors and maybe saying, hey, if you have a, business development in the actual, if you are representing a business or a vacant building or a vacant land within Marque, let's connect, let's get your information out there, let's see what we can do to cross market. So that when a potential tenant does come across somebody says, hey, I need 40 acres, I need to be within this far from, major transit. Wait a minute, we know about this person, so-and-so, Mr. Smith, Mr. Gene Smith owns this property, whatever, not that, but just along those lines, it's kind of connected, it's building more on the program that's already started.
Okay.
That was a suggestion.
Listen, man, I just want to be cognizant of our residents of our city. Let's be very careful on these residential lots that we're talking about, because as you know, as we're set up right now, our, our property taxes are, if they come in there and they put absorbent price on this, that person that's been there for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, house is paid for, and they're making decisions their own fixed income. Let's be very cognizant of what we put where, because we could be cutting our nose off the spot of face, because that person's now taxes just gone up about 15–20%. So while I do agree with what we're talking about doing, let's take care of the citizens that got us here. Let's be very, very careful, because our property tax, the property tax is something that's being discussed way above us right now.
Mhm.
But until that is stop. Let's be very careful and cautious. Let's don't worry about bringing money in, and don't worry about what the impact's gonna be on our community.
Yes, sir. I was just going to mention, so the EDC has that 1.6 acres behind the Dollar General connected to the half-acre pocket park by the central fire station. Reason I mentioned it today is talking to Rick Seiler a month or two ago, and he said, hey, we have the ABC building. There's about 1.5, 1.6 acres that's not developed there that I don't know if the city's ever going to use it. So why don't y'all buy it? And I said, well, maybe there's an opportunity to swap that property and just move on down the road. That connects to our 14.5 acres. And so there might be some better synergy there. Just wanted to plant that seed today and see if there's any momentum to have down the road. Yes, sir. So the city bought 5 acres from the church a number of years ago, ABC building. On that, as part of that 5 acres, there's about 1.6 that's not paved that the city owns. And the idea was, I was approached about maybe looking at the EDC to buy that. And then it came up, well, it's a similar size property, probably similar value, swap it. And then that way you have a more usable size park of 2.1 acres or so versus a half-acre pocket park. You might be able to do, more with the city. That was the idea.
As for the vacant properties, I would like to make a motion about looking at what to do. And I may go back to what you're talking about historical back with the church on Laurel. And the owner of Laurel, who came online and said, I would be willing to work with the city on some type of public private thing, or making condos, but you know, you can have. Can I make a motion to that? About having EDC looking to, talking to the owners about, trying to do something with that, 30,000.
So your motion is to direct the Economic Development Corporation to engage in preliminary discussions with the owner of
Laurel Street, First Baptist Church.
the old First Baptist Church. Yeah, could you give us that address for the record?
It's 821 Laurel.
Maybe 821 Laurel, that might need to be corrected in the minutes if it's not. And so your motion is for the EDC to engage those owners to see if there's any legal potential partnership. That okay, guys? Did you hear that? That's
The First Baptist Church of Marque is 821.
821. That is Ms. Yancey's motion. Yes. Yes, second. Second. Any further discussion on this, correct? Let's take this one, to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are still at 3-5. There are definitely two other considerations. Let me move Mr. Garcia's forward, for purposes of time, and let me see if I can phrase it in a way that he would agree with. I believe he would like for council, and I will do this for him, to make a motion. I make this motion to organize small business communication system to streamline information. Would that be,
That's very fair, absolutely.
I'm making a motion for the Economic Development Corporation to organize small business communication system to streamline information to those small businesses. There's a second.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? There is one item that I heard that we might consider. Ms. Hanson, you were speaking about excess properties belonging to TCID and any for okay, would you like to make that motion?
Yes, I need that. Look at that, the properties, have about 2,000 feet, and look at it as a purchase or as a public-private partnership.
Good.
Is that the right motion?
I think that's, Gus, you good with that one?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a second? Second. Again, in discussion, all of these motions, with the exception of the one that we're directing, the Economic Development Corporation to actually organize, but the motion, considering potential with these excess properties, the motion considering potential with this religious facility are in fact motions that will direct feasibility inquiries, right? So we're asking Alex and the board to just see if there is any possible potential. That's it. We're not asking anything else. So to clarify that, so the community would understand that, moving past that, is there any further discussion on this side? Again, we're getting ready to vote on the potential of any excess properties that belong to Texas City Independent School District. Hearing no further discussion, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Item. Before we move to item 3.6, any further motion for item 3.5, real estate?
For vacant lots, and District A, we have a lot.
Okay, and what you would like to,
My motion is for them to actually you said that's.
you good? Okay. Item 3.6, collaboration and partnership, discussion possible action regarding possible collaborative opportunities and partnerships. There was a lot of discussion about this area. Caesar, Alex, do you all have potential partnerships that you would like the council to direct us to engage in?
Well, I think we've already taken the Bayhab. We're strengthening our relationship with HCAC. The only other one was the Gulf Coast EDC, the acronym GCC EDC, if I'm not mistaken. Alex, you know of any others? I think Baytran, they contacted us wanting us to be part of what they're doing, but
Back to the sign piece was the council's role in any ordinances or updating in order to help with that effort. And I don't know what that looks like. That's just what the discussion was.
The city manager,
Go ahead, go ahead. That's my.
would this be the appropriate place to discuss, youth recreation center partnership type thing?
Absolutely.
We were addressed at AMCO, so. Is this a good time to?
Absolutely. One of the things that we talked about when we were trying to identify or set an identity for what we're doing, one of the things that we've taken to heart of what we're doing with establishing our parks is trying to see if one of our identity or possible identities, which was mentioned by Councilman Yancey, of having sports tourism or some type of sports tourism, heads in beds, need for hotels and so forth. As you all know, that there's a very large market out there for travel sports, whether it be for youth or seniors or pickleball or all the sports actually now. The thought was, are we going to develop any venues, partake in any possibilities of any of the property that we currently own to develop some of those fixed properties that we have, partner with TCISD, any combination of those things that we can do. If there is going to be, if that's going to be one of our potential pillars that we're going to say, this is what we're known for. Again, live, work, and play. That is how that, it kind of hits the live corridor and the play corridor in a sense of what are we doing? Like, what are we known for? Allowing our youth and our residents for recreational opportunities while they're here, but also opening ourselves up to potential tourism in that sense. That's a conversation we talked about for developing some of our parks. We're already taking the initial steps. We are delayed, obviously, because the expenses from our Parks Master Plan would far exceed what we can do at one time. But is that something that we want to look into, look at further? That was probably the discussion that that you're alluding to. And working with our partners to do that, right?
Thank you, Jim. Do that for.
Absolutely. And then developing to find others.
Do we have partners or potential partners that we are requesting council direct staff and the EDC board to engage today? I know we're talking about youth recreation center partnerships. Do we have names that we can put in these?
Are you talking about organizations or are you talking about cities?
I would say,
Partnership.
I would venture to say a partnership with both. For example, we mentioned TCISD already. Is it the plants? I mean, we can name each company individual. Is it the Walmart, the Sam's, the Amoco, ACUs, the Coastals? It's expanding our partnership and piecing our development in a way where we can say, all right, we're going to be looking for a sponsor for field 1. And then field 2, whatever that would be, what does that look like?
Let's look at this. Let me back up a little. I think we might be able to have a motion. I think I might get a form one, but I want to make sure that Alex, if you would, again, one more time, provide for this council a report on the status of Church Street. That is the building. Where are we with the building? What's happening with the building? That apparently is a point of topic in certain parts of our community, in particular those that surround that area that perhaps were clients and customers of that establishment. You can give it to us in written form, email, that would suffice.
Okay.
And then the council will move forward if they feel need to respond. But as far as this motion, 3-6, sounds like we don't really have a lot of partnerships that we're willing to move forward with. So I would make a motion that the council direct city staff, as well as the Economic Development Corporation, to explore any potential possibilities for partnership and collaboration that will enhance our economic development efforts, and that they will bring those partnerships, those collaborations to council for direction. Would that help?
I think it covers
Get
it.
it? Yeah,
Okay, so that's nothing to do with recreation.
that's any partnership that the EDC and the city staff deem would be beneficial to economic development in our city. And that may or may not be, it's up to you guys. And
Economic development.
right, so in other words, if the board feels uncomfortable with that, that would be that discussion would have to happen at the board level.
Yeah.
Right?
Are we up for a second?
Yeah, do we have a second?
We do not. So moved.
Second, now we're discussing.
So, in my travels around the city, I was at Haven with the new principal. and he's interested in either doing a public-private partnership with the city to provide a track in that piece that they own. So that would be a public-private partnership. So that's TCI, that's TCI's.
Talk about the vacant land between us.
He wants, because there's no place for us to go anywhere, because we can't go to the track of TCIC at high school. Now, that's one.
Yeah.
Ignite, Old Man First School, now their school, they're interested in doing the track there, so that would be another. And these are the grant programs, Healthy Living, Safe City Initiative, and there are principals that are seeking us out to say, hey, we got this land, we would like to develop it with you all in the city.
So
Would that go through the park department, get the grant, nothing to do with EDC, okay?
Well, it could, because if you go to some of the HVAC meetings that we're talking about, there's some grant money for that. They have a lot of money that they are trying to spend.
Yeah, but if you get grant money, EDC gets grant money, would it have to be used for
I don't know.
businesses, that type of thing?
So here's what we do in that situation. What we do is any partnership, any potential collaboration, can be vetted by EDC. To your point, James,
Right.
if this particular collaboration or partnership does not have an economic benefit,
Right.
the board can vote to forward that to the Parks Board.
Okay.
Or forward that, you can say, we don't see any value in this, but we're gonna vote to forward this to the Clean City Commission.
Okay.
Where, it was fit there, we'll house better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
When you get a call from the HVAC, they say, you have money to spend, and people want to apply for it, they doing it before and everything.
So that's all.
Okay.
Any further discussion on items 3-6? Hearing none, we will call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're on item 4, roundtable discussion. This has been definitely a healthy discussion. So we'll leave a little time for, I guess, either if we'd like to go around the room, final thoughts. Because we've had this roundtable discussion the entire time. So we'll allow Cindy.
Just one thing to wrap up the meeting that I went to last week that they asked us to bring back. If there are any challenges, opportunities, or best practices that should be included in the regional comprehensive economic development strategy that they're putting together for the entire region, is anything in general. I can tell you some of the things that were brought up that I got a chance to smile about was a lot of folks are saying they don't have enough homes. They don't have enough land to, comprehensive straight land pieces to kind of build on. They don't have a plan to build them. They don't have the training for the workforce. I'm just thinking, well, we got that. We got that. We are in the path of most predictable growth. So any feedback that you guys would like to give on that? I mean, it was eye-opening to hear about these challenges that Marque is having. But we're just primed for the next big thing as far as coming down to the rest of the corridor. Anything else that you would like for me to take back to this group? Because I was asked to definitely participate. I was very vocal and brought forward some things that some folks maybe not thought of, but again, and they also asked if any possible names for the regional strategy. So they're actually in that phase. They're actually putting together, HCAG is taking the lead on that. And obviously by being participants and player at the table, we get a chance to have a lot of voice on it. Squeak wheel gets oil, right? So anything you guys would like to take back? I know aerospace is a big deal. Sustainable energy is a big deal. IT is a big deal. Anything else that you guys would like to bring back that is of interest?
I'd like to just tune or point to what Roasty mentioned. In economic development, we also seek to maintain a balance. And the balance in Lamarck is maintain an affordable community. That is something that I certainly would like for us to achieve. It can be done. Yeah, but we as a city government have a big role in that, making sure that we just don't open the door. So I'm just saying development must be planned to maintain affordability in your city.
yeah, if anybody else has anything else that you'd like for me to take back to this group.
I just want to say first, what you measure matters, right? And I don't, what you measure matters. And so what I'm always looking for is a data. What I like, what you guys are doing with the inside the mark and shine on the mark, is that it counters the net, right? And it needs to be elastic, like all the amazing things that's here, that's coming. Because when the paper calls me and say, well, what is your response to all of this stuff that's happening? One is, in my mind, I think that's not making anyone's birthday. So what I do is I use that opportunity to say, we are the second fastest growing city in housing. We are, because I'm like, I'm not gonna glorify them. People do that already. So what I like about the EDC is that you guys always glorify what's happening, what's good about our city, and you make it simple enough for anybody to do that inside the market, to the point that CIS was like, hey, we want to be inside the market, Miracle, we want to be inside and shine on the market. So that's nice to see that that's still continuing. I love that the EDC is where we can brag. And I guess that's why my standard is high, because it is a growing part of the city where we can really shine. And so I know I have high expectations, but I'm down to time too. And I always say that's what y'all know, that's that way. Right? To have high expectations. So, and we want our city to do best. And we're at the winner. We have to give a report, right? We got to stand up and give a report about the city. How is their city doing? And so we like to brag, and I always bring up the EDC at those things. And if we can't go, I'm going to give y'all my ticket, because I need somebody there to brag on the market. If that something happens, we can. But thank you so much for your time. I know y'all are busy as I'll get out with all the development that's coming. Thank you so much. Especially those of you that are seeing the ups and downs and the different council personalities. Yeah, to get along with this. I thank you, especially Al, thank you for my patience, for your patience, because I've asked you a million questions. You're so patient with me. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And I look forward to bigger and better. That's all I have.
Chair, could I ask, did you include the EDC on the invites for the dinner? The meetings?
Yeah, we were included.
I'd like to say that I enjoy going to your meetings monthly, and you, Alex, you sat down with me a couple times with it and stuff. And I appreciate everything y'all do.
Yes, sir.
And y'all are, pushing as well as hard as we are, trying to make it better for you. So much
Appreciate that.
Anyone else?
One of the great feelings in the world, you have and for them to sit there and look at the information of your city and then try to steal your PR person. And because it set the tone on our channel and to see it, and it be first to go on EDC I-45 now and to see what Marque is doing. It's setting the tone and rebrand. It makes us proud. See what's out there that's working, and other people, yeah, you go ahead and do it, but that is working. So the rebrand is so exciting. Everybody's just waiting to see what's happening next, and it is gonna happen, and so we're excited, we have passion. Today, a beautiful meeting, sit down, put everything out on the table. We all have the same goal, same vision, and same hunger for our community.
Well said. I'll just say real quick, thank y'all for the opportunity. Really a productive meeting. Board member Hawking texted me a little bit ago. He's been watching. He sends his regards, and sorry he couldn't be here today.
I would ask, and I don't know, I think it's appropriate for your PR side, that you also include the fact that you serve as a volunteer board. And there's a value in that to the city. And the last number that's being used now in terms of the value of an hour of volunteer service is approximately $31 per hour. And your meetings and everything else, I would ask that you almost have a scoreboard of that. And so people reminded people of the hour and the value at that time that you're contributing to the city. And it also has a value for us as we're putting together the set aside portion for grants. And so please use that figure return. You can track it.
I'd really like to share with the group today how important it is just to communicate with each other. It's been a learning process ever since the board got together and discussed. We've gone through something that most people don't even realize. Changing our leadership was a big change for us. And we made that. Alex and our chairman has done an outstanding job of changing some things that we're doing right now. So I'm really pleased that you understand what we're going through, but the main thing we understand now, hearing from your mouth, sitting down talking to you guys, it's educational for us to understand. We understand that you are aggressive, and you said something that meant a lot to both of us. You've got 3 years to produce, and then you got to go get elected again. You know, we need to understand that. We need to be aggressive also. So thank you for sharing your thoughts, your ideas with us, so we can go better do our jobs. And I'll guarantee you, those volunteer hours that you're getting from us, you look at our minutes. I don't think there's a minute meeting yet that all of us weren't there. It's been 100% participation, and it's just not a walk in and walk out deal. A lot of discussion goes into it. So thank you for the leadership. Thank you for the education. And I can assure you, we're going to do the best we can to. And the shine on the mark, I can't go when we go to different meetings that we go to. How many times I've come back and say it's been stolen by another county, and you know, and I was sitting in there, hey, give me some information, so we can do that. So that we're on the right track. We're on the right track. We're doing some very positive things, and I just want our community to know that. And I really appreciate what Mandy's doing. I can't say enough. What Alex is doing. And the weight that's on our leaders' shoulders is everyone, but it's a transition that he's taken us through. It's not easy, but he's taking it through. So thank you for sharing your ideas and thoughts with us. So now we can do that.
Appreciate it very much. Yeah, I'd like to say that I don't want this to be a one and done meeting.
Absolutely.
You know, we ought to have this quarterly.
Please.
You know, because y'all leaders of the community, and we are too, right there with y'all. So we need to stay connected. And then I'm gonna have to go right after the meeting. I can't go with y'all to eat, but I gotta go to the memorial service tonight. I gotta be in Galveston at 5, but I think it was a very productive meeting, and it gives us some direction. Thank y'all.
Yeah, thank y'all very much.
Again, we echo from the council, we echo our gratitude for your volunteerism, those of you that are volunteers in this community on this board. We know, just as well as you all know, how impactful, thank you, how impactful your service is to our community. And we applaud you for that service. Alex, your staff, Caesar, your staff, we certainly thank you for all of the work done to provide for this meeting and for your diligence in making sure that we are heard here and that you all understand what we believe the community is saying to us. I would echo Mayor Pro Tem's comments, Ms. Yancey's comments, Mr. Lane's comments. We need to tell our story. This country is in the midst of an attack, and it's an attack that uses disinformation. It chooses to make government unstable. That's the design of the attack. And so the response to that is always clear, focused, impactful, and informative information. Information is always the response. So Alex, this board, I encourage you to tell your story. The people need to know what this Economic Development Corporation and this council did during COVID. It's important. We were a leader in it. We set a trend. Little Lamarque set a trend for the entire county. We spent close to $1 million trying to help struggling businesses during COVID. City of 18,000 people. You look across our county, and there were cities that were larger than us that did not percentage-wise produce for their business owners. So that's just one small story that needs to be told, and a grand story of who Lamar really is. And so I look forward to continuing to share that story, and I look forward to hearing that story coming from our Economic Development Corporation. If there's nothing further, we certainly will entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All in favor? All right. Stand adjourned until 6 o'clock.